A man opens his eyes with a fearful gaze. He says in his heart, "Where am I now? And is he dead already?" He touches the walls around him and with a panicked face realizes that the room's walls are made of wood. The man approaches. He is confined within a coffin, but strangely, the man realizes that he is now standing upright. He asks himself what is happening and why can't he remember anything. If he is indeed in a coffin right now, why is he standing instead of lying down? But there's no one to answer his questions as he is trapped alone in that cramped room. The man looks frustrated and scared. He begins to think of ways to escape from the cramped space. So, he decides to break the wooden wall with his bare hands. This unnamed MC hits the wooden wall with all his might until it breaks. As the wooden wall finally shatters, a yellow liquid flows out from the broken hole. The man named Go Insung touches the liquid on his hand and realizes that it's not ordinary water, but honey. Suddenly, a hologram from the system appears and announces that it is the mysterious honey capable of providing lifestyle and ordinary rank effects, with an additional healing effect. The man widens his eyes once again. He is shocked to see the hologram screen suddenly appearing in front of his face, especially when the wounds on his fingers slowly heal because of the honey flowing into his hands. Now, he is even more excited to pound the wooden walls around him, because Go Insung knows that no matter the wound, it will heal with the honey he just found. Even hunger and thirst are quenched with that honey. Go Insung continues to pound the walls for quite some time. He starts to wonder how long he's been pounding the wall. He only pounds the wood hoping to escape from the cramped room. Go Insung doesn't even know what time it is now or how long he's been pounding the wooden wall. The sound of the wooden wall being pounded continuously echoes, until finally the wooden wall breaks. Go Insung sighs with relief and exits the wooden wall. The protagonist murmurs, "Where am I now?" while looking around. Go Insung realizes he is now inside a rather small room. On one side of the room, there's a honey duct, and on the other side, there's a hole covered with stones. Go Insung continues to look around and turns to the other side of the room, then finds a steel grill window. The young man murmurs to himself, pondering why he has been in a coffin all this time. Suddenly, the hologram screen from the system appears and says that Go Insung, as user 5248, has successfully escaped from the tutorial dungeon. Go Insung is surprised to read the sentence on the system screen. The writing on the hologram screen changes. Now the notification reads that Go Insung has entered the dungeon. A total of 90 people can enter dungeon. Go Insung immediately puts on a shocked face reading the writing on the system screen. The young man realizes that there are more mysterious places after this. The system then asks Go Insung to choose a nickname to use for the streaming broadcast. The writing on the hologram screen changes again. The system seems not to care about the man's question. Instead, it asks the man to create a nickname for the streaming broadcast. Go Insung mutters angrily. He says, "This is all insane." The man keeps muttering in his panicked mind. Go Insung even falls to his knees realizing his situation is so difficult. He finally mutters, "Please save me." But the system detects that his muttering is his new nickname. Finally, the system sets Go Insung's nickname as "Please Save Me." The system also informs that Go Insung can now check his live channel. Go Insung cannot change his nickname until completing areas 1 to 10 in area 1. Then the narrator's voice adds, "Viewer comment session" appears. The first comment from Go Insung, full of mockery, appears. It surprises Go Insung as he immediately lifts his face and looks at the hologram screen showing comments from his live viewers. Go Insung is amazed to realize that people are watching him. One of the viewers, this young man, asks him to check the settings on his live channel for more information. Hearing the instructions from the viewer behind the hologram, Go Insung immediately checks the settings on the system. He finds some important information. One of them is about activities in the dungeon and how long he lived in that coffin. The young man looks shocked to realize he has been in that coffin for 306 days. He wonders why patient viewers are watching him for so long. Go Insung then asks if he's dead already. A viewer answers that he is both dead and alive at the same time. Go Insung immediately asks to be sent back to his original place to the figure who commented. But the figure watering the plants answers that what Go Insung said is the dumbest thing he's heard lately. The mysterious man looks relaxed even though Go Insung looks very anxious. Go Insung then asks who the figure behind the comment is. Why can't he help Go Insung? The mysterious figure only answers that he is busy. Go Insung continues to press the mysterious man to tell him what all of this is about. The young man even shouts desperately asking for help from the people commenting behind the hologram screen. But the figure in the comments only replies that Go Insung must learn by himself because he is not Go Insung's teacher. Hearing that, Go Insung becomes more frustrated. He is so angry that he bites his shirt to vent his frustration. Go Insung, the protagonist, is desperate. He just sits cross-legged, bows his head with a gloomy face, and mourns his chaotic fate. He stays like this for a long time and doesn't want to do anything. The person behind the hologram comments again that if Go Insung keeps behaving like this, he will fail. So with despair, Go Insung asks what he should do. Ting. A hologram screen appeared, showing a list of shops owned by Dungeon 1-1. Inside the screen, it displayed the inventory of each shop, such as bread, flashlight, and steel saw. Go Insung finally began tinkering with the hologram screen to find other information. Then, Go Insung asked the figure behind the hologram screen if he could return to his world if he left that place. The mysterious figure replied that if Go Insung managed to enter the top 9, the administrator would drag him to meet King Yanluo. Surprised to hear the name, Go Insung asked who King Yanluo was. The mysterious figure answered, "He is the king of hell." Upon hearing that, Go Insung still thought that meant he would still die. But this young man tried to find the positive side, thinking that maybe this could be an opportunity to return to his world. Suddenly, several new comment columns appeared, asking who Go Insung, the newcomer, was. The new viewers requested something to welcome their arrival. Go Insung concluded that the situation now must be similar to Africa TV. So, he thought he had to entertain to receive balloons from the viewers. Go Insung shouted enthusiastically at the hologram screen. But the viewers behind the monogram screen still called him a fool because his nickname was "Please Save Me." But Go Insung tried not to pay attention to such mockery and explained that he was the 100th out of 101 to complete the tutorial, and the next dungeon could only accommodate 90 people. That meant there was no one else in that place. Go Insung was ridiculed by his viewers because he had just realized the situation he was in. Even Go Insung took 306 days to complete the first tutorial. They thought Go Insung was stubborn. Realizing that his viewers were increasing, Go Insung became very excited and asked if any of them knew how to get out of that place. This young man even went so far as to frighten his hands in front of his chest as if pleading for one of the good people watching him to tell him how to get out of there. But they instead thought Go Insung was foolish and told him to use his brain as he did when completing the tutorial. One of the viewers said that they could also be punished or warned if they told Go Insung how to escape the room. Go Insung was surprised and then explained that he had just kept hitting the wall continuously until he managed to escape. This young man even showed off his muscular arms, a wide smile on his face because he was very proud of those muscles. One viewer sounded incredulous that Go Insung managed to escape by continuously hitting the wood. Then Go Insung showed the box that he managed to destroy on the other side of the room. The viewers started to get excited. They didn't expect someone as determined as Go Insung who could keep hitting that wooden box for 300 days. But one viewer still criticized Go Insung by calling him foolish, because Go Insung could escape from the room just by pushing the top part of the wood. One comment from that viewer successfully shocked Go Insung. Go Insung's face even turned terrifying upon hearing that. Not long after, the audience burst into laughter seeing Go Insung serious with his statement. Go Insung became weak realizing how foolish he was. This young man then sat back down, slumped in the middle of the room. He no longer paid attention to the negative comments from his live streaming viewers, until finally one of the viewers sent him 7 balloons. Seeing that, Go Insung became enthusiastic again. He immediately rose with a cheerful face and thanked them very much. Go Insung bowed while saying that he would work hard to become #1 as a gesture of thanks to someone who gave him the first balloon. They thought Go Insung was an interesting main character because he was always serious. One viewer also asked Go Insung not to take each dungeon lightly. Not long after, a loud clanging sound was heard from inside Go Insung's room. The young man was climbing the wall with a small iron window above it. He was sawing the bars of the window with a small iron saw. Suddenly, the system reported that someone had successfully entered the dungeon. Go Insung looked very surprised to hear that notification. Go Insung was even more astonished to see that notification. He became more excited to see the bars quickly get out of the cramped room and receive the success prize. One of the viewers behind the hologram screen asked Go Insung how long he had been using the saw to try to cut the iron. With an awkward smile, this young man answered that he had been trying like that for a week. Go Insung thought there was only one person who remained faithful to watch him when he realized that no one else was watching him from behind the live streaming. The mysterious viewer said that everyone left because they saw Go Insung's foolish behavior for a week. Go Insung asked puzzled what he should do because the stone was too strong and too big for him to move by himself out of the window. This young man also explained that his head wouldn't fit through the narrow honeycomb drain on the other side of the room. The mysterious viewer asked Go Insung to think of a sensible way. Go Insung replied that's why he used the saw and ladder. This young man climbed back up the ladder to see the bars of the window. Finally, another iron bar at the window was successfully dropped by Go Insung. But with that, his weak body also fell from the top of the ladder. The sound of the impact was quite loud as Go Insung fell flat on the ground with a limp body. Go Insung complained inwardly because he managed to cut the second iron bar after 10 days. He was very tired and almost desperate to try to get out of that cramped room. Finally, the system appeared and reported that there was one more person who managed to escape from Dungeon 1-1. So, there are currently only 15 slots left for people. Go Insung was shocked and immediately rose upon hearing the report from the system. He looked around carefully without caring about the comments from the viewers who kept mocking him. The man climbed back up the ladder, looked around, then went down again. As if realizing something, he began pounding the walls around him with the ladder until the ladder was shattered into pieces. Insung attempted to make fire from the broken ladder. He asked his noisy audience to just watch and see what he would do. Insung smiled enthusiastically. He continued to spin the wood until the fire ignited. One of the spectators gave a stern warning because Insung's hair was catching fire. Panicked because his hair was on fire, Insung jumped around in a panic. Despite the incident, the audience laughed. Some even made funny comments and gave Insung some balloons. They seemed very entertained by the young man's antics. Feeling like everything was futile, Insung finally ran carrying the fire in his hair to light it under a large stone covering the window. The audience began to be surprised as the large stone on the window started moving. But Insung ended up cheering because the large stone fell. Insung continued to jump with joy as he successfully removed the stone from the window. Meanwhile, the audience was amazed to see Insung succeed. They wondered why Insung did that and what the object was. Insung then explained that the object placed above the window was not a stone because the creature had very clear patterns on its shell. And Insung realized that the creature occasionally moved. So Insung finally found out that the object was not a stone but a turtle. Now the giant turtle fell and smiled broadly at Insung. Jumping towards the window, Insung said that this dungeon has 10 stages. From 1-1 to 1-10. The young man speculated that the theme of Clue 10 and the turtle was 10 symbols of longevity while he pondered the theme, which is 10 symbols of longevity. Well, although all of it was still his speculation. Insung smiled broadly because he finally managed to leave the room. Finally, Insung passed the first dungeon. He jumped out of the window and found a room full of shining treasures. Insung smiled happily when he was told by the system that he could take one item from the treasure room. But suddenly, Insung realized that many things in that place were deception. So he had to choose everything carefully. Initially, Insung took silver coins, but they melted away. The young man began to think that he might have to take gold. But then he tried the sword and realized that the weapon was what he needed most to survive. So he finally paced back and forth because he was confused about determining the right item. At this point, suddenly the big turtle that had covered the window screamed. But Insung ignored it and continued to focus on finding the treasure he wanted to take away. Insung paced back and forth while rummaging through the treasures in the room. But he still hadn't found the hidden treasure. When he finished rummaging through the goods, suddenly Insung realized that he was hungry. So he took bread and spread it with a lot of honey. At that moment, the big turtle that had covered the window suddenly approached him and asked for the bread. When the big turtle opened its mouth, Insung saw something inside the turtle's mouth, so he took it and exchanged it for the bread. The audience suspected that the young man's arm would be cut off if he put it into the turtle's mouth. But in reality, Insung's arm was fine. Insung stared in wonder at the object in his hand, and the system appeared, informing that the object held by Insung was a very rare pearl that could tame monsters with a fairly high level. Immediately Insung, and also the live streaming audience, were shocked to hear the notification from the system. They didn't expect Insung to get such a valuable item. Insung concluded that the pearl could tame monsters up to 100%. So he suspected that in the future, there would certainly be very terrifying monsters. At that moment, Insung was lost in his thoughts, suddenly hearing the sound of the turtle snoring because its stomach was full. Insung complained irritably when he realized that his bread had been eaten by the turtle. While looking at the turtle lying comfortably, Insung realized something. He then put the pearl he was holding into the turtle's mouth, because he was sure that the main character in Dungeon 1-1 was the turtle. Initially, the audience was busy mocking Insung's actions. They even threw quite hurtful insults, but suddenly the fat turtle turned into a large monster, which turned out to be a spirit turtle. Instantly, those who mocked were amazed to see the spirit turtle obtained by Insung. They didn't expect Insung to get a top-ranking creature from the mystic class. Insung smiled broadly at his audience after getting such a good jackpot. The turtle monster immediately transformed into a baby form and was held by Insung, who looked very happy. The audience called this young man a very lucky winner. Even one of the spectators sent 5 and recommended him, which made him rise to a high level and get the additional audience capacity feature. Insung immediately thanked them profusely while bowing when he saw the notification. While enjoying his happiness, suddenly his eyesight blurred and slowly he fainted. Insung was awakened by the annoying sound of ducks. Currently, he found himself in a room filled with so many ducklings. He realized that he had fallen asleep while working to determine which ducklings were male and which were female. He found the task too easy, causing him to become easily bored and sleepy. Suddenly, a purplish energy aura surrounded Insung, and a terrifying figure emerged from the purplish light, saying, "Even roosters are living creatures." The figure seemed poised to devour Insung alive. In an instant, the man woke up in a cramped room just like Dungeon 1-1. The event had only been a dream. The information system appeared and informed through a hologram screen that Go Insung was currently in Dungeon 1-2, referred to as the food warehouse. Go Insung was very confused by the room because there was no food inside. It was just a narrow, windowless space with a honey river flowing, similar to the previous room. The only difference was the incredibly high ceiling. Go Insung noticed the only gap near the high ceiling and realized that he could escape through that high gap. He sat back in the middle of the room, pondering the way out of this new room. Suddenly, Go Insung remembered something. He rose and tried to punch the concrete walls around him. However, after just one hit, the black-haired man gave up and tried to check the system's store. In the system's store, there were various items such as ropes, chicken feed, and growth accelerators. It seemed like one clue to getting out of the dungeon this time was to raise those ducklings. Realizing this possibility, Go Insung began to increase the audience capacity to get more balloons. So, he could buy items in the system's store for his ducklings. After the audience reached 20 people, Go Insung said that up until now, he was in the last position, but from now on, everything would be different. The young man shouted enthusiastically. He was determined to prove to his audience that he could rank top and make them give him many balloons. But in the end, Go Insung just lay down bored as before. He started to regret not doing anything and getting only a few audiences who liked to insult him. Every day, Go Insung just fed those ducklings until they got fat. The audience started to get bored watching Go Insung feed the ducklings every day. But Go Insung explained that his pet ducks would soon lay eggs. One of the audience doubted and asked, how could all those ducks lay eggs? Go Insung answered enthusiastically because all those ducks were female. While Go Insung was busy talking to his live streaming audience, suddenly there was a notification from the system that some participants had successfully moved on to the next dungeon. Go Insung was shocked to hear that. Seeing the various expressions on this young man's face, the audience assumed that Go Insung was like someone who had just lost his home or family. The next day when Go Insung woke up from his deep sleep, he saw that his ducklings had laid many eggs. Go Insung looked very happy eating something nutritious and filling. At that moment, the system appeared and informed him that the eggs were from special ducks. So, the eggs could provide physical strength and high stamina. Without hesitation, Go Insung ate many eggs. His muscles grew bigger and his strength multiplied. Once his body became very muscular, Go Insung started pounding the concrete wall with full force because he wanted to get out of there soon. Continuing to pound the wall with enthusiasm, Go Insung said he didn't want to stay there anymore. He wanted to get out. Go Insung kept pounding the wall so hard that the wall stones fell and his hands got injured. The mystical tortoise he obtained in the previous round came out and healed Go Insung's hand. Then the man stood again in front of the wall that had started to crumble. When he was about to start pounding the wall again, suddenly the system appeared and said that some participants had successfully passed to the next round. Go Insung fell to his knees. He almost gave up because even destroying the wall with his pounding strength still required a lot of time. But hearing the system report that there were still 66 slots left, Go Insung's spirit diminished immediately. This young man was exhausted and he began to question his existence there. While staring at the high gap in the ceiling, he lamented his fate. At that moment, Go Insung's eyes caught dozens of ducks passing by in front of him. As if remembering something, the young man caught the ducks and forcibly plucked their feathers. Then he broke the remaining raw eggs and smeared them on his body. Go Insung even rolled over the raw eggs. Go Insung's strange behavior astonished his audience and made them mock him even more. But then the young man explained that he intentionally used raw eggs to make glue. He then showed the artificial wings he had successfully created and attached to his body. The audience considered this young man insane because he was going to do something reckless, which was to defy gravity. Go Insung asked his audience to be patient and see if he would succeed later. The young man prepared to flap his wings and fly to the high gap near the ceiling. Go Insung gathered all his strength. He prepared to fly with the wings he had made from duck feathers. With a smile on his face, Go Insung thought, in real life, he would surely be laughed at by others. But now, thanks to the muscular system, his agility and strength were superhuman. Go Insung tried to fly while flapping his wings after stepping on the wall. He murmured in his heart that he could fly. He tried to flap his wings as hard as he could. The people behind the hologram began to buzz with comments about the abilities of our protagonist. They considered Go Insung crazy and thought it impossible for him to fly. But Go Insung kept trying hard to lift his body with the help of his wings. In the end, he still fell. This made the audience very entertained by his efforts. Although they laughed at Go Insung, the audience remained curious, waiting for his unique attempt again. In a still lying position, Go Insung thought earlier he felt like he couldn't use his strength, as if he was standing on the wrong foot. This young man stared at the ceiling while pondering his frequent failures. Go Insung assumed it was because those wings were not feathers growing from his own body. Go Insung knew those feathers had their life force. Suddenly, as if remembering something, the young man with black hair immediately rose. He sat up and approached the honey river on the other side of the room. Go Insung smiled broadly at the source of life force before him. This young man even laughed satisfactorily thinking about his brilliant idea. But the audience behind the screen began to comment maliciously, urging Go Insung to stop trying altogether because they believed it would be futile. But it wasn't Go Insung's name if he gave up easily. The young man applied honey to the feathers attached to his body. He didn't hesitate to apply so much honey to his shoulders and those feathers. The audience became more amazed and asked what Go Insung intended to do. In the next moment, the hologram system announced the special ability of the honey, which was to give life force. Slowly, those feathers entered Go Insung's body as if wanting to tear it apart. At first, the young man was in pain, but then he began to get used to it and explained to the audience that the feathers were now entering his flesh and truly becoming his own. Although there were still audience members laughing at Go Insung's idea, the young man remained optimistic, smiled, and took a rope to tie the ends of the wings to both his arms. In this way, Go Insung hoped to stabilize the wings on both his arms. But the audience only showed more disdain and urged the young man to just break down the wall. But Go Insung explained that the theme of this room might be one of the 10 symbols of longevity commonly referred to as a stork. As the young man confidently claimed that he could do it, one of the audience members accused Go Insung's words as mere nonsense. There was even someone who questioned where the long-lived stork was because he only saw a chicken. Upon hearing that, Go Insung immediately prepared himself and ran as hard as he could while continuing to say with seriousness that he would be the stork. He shouted. Then, with all his might, he lifted his body. Go Insung truly tried his hardest to climb the wall and fly with his new wings. The audience began to admire him. They almost couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were amazed to see Go Insung succeed in flying up to the very high ceiling with the help of his wings. A spectator commented that it was because of inhuman agility and stamina and the life force of honey. Some audience members didn't even expect honey to function in uniting chicken feathers into their wings. This new way was truly amazing to them. One of Go Insung's fans with the nickname Self-Reflection 469 gave 50 bubbles and advised other viewers never to doubt Go Insung again. Other audience members agreed with this devoted fan of Go Insung. This was the first time they had seen someone fly to the ceiling. The system appeared and announced that the path Go Insung was taking led to Dungeon 1-4. The young man was surprised to read that notification because he should have entered Dungeon 1-3 first. So the system explained that it was a deserved reward for Go Insung after he painstakingly passed that floor. Other audience members were even amazed to see the loser in the last place finally take the first place. It seemed they were getting excited because Go Insung could be in the first place and exceed their expectations. Even Go Insung's fan with the nickname Self-Reflection 469 gave another 50 bubbles as congratulations. This figure said that they had only looked at Go Insung for support all this time. Positive comments and newly received gifts only made Go Insung more enthusiastic. Go Insung was initially happy to see many gifts and viewers coming in. But suddenly, one of the viewers said that the god Yama might also be watching Go Insung's broadcast. He worried that Go Insung would be abducted by that god. Hearing that, Go Insung was shocked and asked if the god Yama could watch his live stream. But then the viewer replied that he was just talking nonsense. Meanwhile, in one of the mysterious rooms, at the end of dark corridors, a man with a white beard sipped his drink. He said with his heavy voice, "I see it, fool. I watch without anyone knowing." This figure was so mysterious with a terrifying laugh, making anyone who saw him shudder. Perhaps he was the one called the god Yama. The mysterious figure continued, "I haven't seen someone funny like this person, PS or Go Insung." On the wall of our protagonist's room, Go Insung just sat silently. He sat with a gloomy face while staring downwards, which was so steep. The audience began to wonder why Go Insung had been daydreaming since earlier. They were eager to see this young man act again soon. But instead, he jumped back into Dungeon 1-2. His somber expression seemed to indicate that something was missed and left behind. While his audience was confused, Go Insung bought some chicken feed. After that, he poured a lot of chicken food on the floor so that his chickens could eat again. Go Insung said that the chickens also need to eat. Then, the leftover food will be put into his investment. Then this young man put some chickens into a sack. The audience became more amazed to see this young man bringing chickens as food reserves. Even though actually, one couldn't bring food from Dungeons 1-2 to Dungeons 1-3. Go Insung replied that he remembered that. But he still returned to fly through the window gap above the room and said that the rule was useless in Dungeons 1-4. With confidence, Go Insung stepped on the high walls of the room while holding the sack of chickens in his hand. The hologram screen reappeared and announced, "Streamer please save me," had entered Dungeon 1-4 first. There are 69 points left for Dungeons 1-4. Go Insung murmured happily after reading the narrator's notification. He was happy because what he did didn't affect his success. The audience enthusiastically gave comments full of admiration for Go Insung. The system reappeared and announced that Go Insung was entitled to a special reward as the first person to enter Dungeon 1-4. The young man wanted to get a D rank random skill book chest. The young man's face changed to joy after reading the notification. Go Insung immediately plucked his feathers because he wanted to get his prize right away. But this young man looked very painful when plucking feathers that had merged with his body. The audience laughed again at Go Insung's innocent behavior. Not long after, the monitor screen reappeared and stated that Go Insung had successfully obtained the skill book chest. It was a book full of information about skills ranging from normal to advanced ranks. As Go Insung opened the brightly shining prize chest, the system explained that the skill book could strengthen focus because it was a skill book to strengthen focus. As Go Insung was very excited to learn and read the book, suddenly the book emitted a very strong glow. Its bright light even illuminated Go Insung's entire body, and slowly all the information in the book entered his mind. For a moment, Go Insung became dizzy when the merging process was complete. He just stood stiff as all the information in the book entered him. The system appeared and provided information that Go Insung had now acquired normal level focus strengthening skills. Details of the skills that could enhance concentration. The longer it is used, the more stamina is drained. Skill rank will increase when the maximum level capacity is reached. That was the sound of the notification from his hologram screen. Go Insung thought that now his head felt clearer. It felt different from usual. He could now talk and interact normally again. Go Insung became even more excited to go to the next challenge. The young man with black hair began to stand right in the middle of the road ahead. The mysterious street in front of him had spotlights shining on each side, left, and right. It looked deserted and calm, which means it hides very big trouble. The system appeared and provided information about Dungeons 1-4. It was the path used by prisoners when they escaped. Security has been strengthened, but players can escape if they have determination and wisdom. Go Insung was surprised to hear that explanation. He tried to open a shop in that dungeon and saw there was armor inside. This young man assumed that the dungeon was quite dangerous because there was armor in the shop. So, determination and wisdom, PS muttered softly. He began to open the hologram screen and take one of his stored items. So he decided to buy armor to pass through this mysterious room. Now after wearing the armor, Go Insung became more enthusiastic about passing through that room. Now, the young man commonly called PS will start a new struggle to pass through Dungeon 1-4 after wearing leather armor that fits perfectly on his body. He immediately ran with enthusiasm on that street. A large, shiny axe fell from above. The axe was right above PS's head. Will PS survive this dangerous obstacle in Dungeon 1-4 this time? The focus reinforcement has been activated, and notifications on the hologram screen immediately light up when Go Insung is in danger. His instinct immediately kicks in, his eyes shining with energy, and he retreats backward at the right moment. Go Insung manages to evade, but the front part of his body still gets hit by the axe attack. Fortunately, with the protection from his armor, his body isn't crushed. Nevertheless, he still falls, with a slight wound on his forehead. Go Insung stares at the large axe in front of him with eyes full of fear. One of the viewers behind the screen comments, laughing, seeing Go Insung narrowly escape at the last moment. Go Insung now stands back up. He looks around to inspect the room further. The youth suspects that the room must be filled with traps. Suddenly, as quick as lightning, a large arrow with a sharp, shining tip strikes Go Insung's shoulder. The youth grimaces in pain as he realizes his body has been hit by the large arrow. Go Insung is increasingly puzzled, thinking about these dangerous things as he pulls the arrow out of his shoulder. Go Insung realizes he evaded at the right time because that's what was instructed to him by his armor. Go Insung takes the arrow and gazes at its shining tip. Go Insung is shocked to see the arrowhead has 4 sides with a flower-like shape. If that thing sticks into his body, it would be difficult to remove considering its intricate shape. The audience laughs uproariously, realizing Go Insung wouldn't be able to pull out the arrow if it pierced his body. Most of them have only come to ridicule him. One of them even suggests that Go Insung keeps the unique arrow as a souvenir or as a bookmark. So far, they are greatly entertained by the dangerous things befalling Go Insung. Without further ado, Go Insung throws the arrow with the unique tip into a corner of the room near the entrance. He believes he won't be able to pass through that terrifying room. Before doing anything else, Go Insung apologizes to his audience because from now on everything will be boring. The youth looks uncomfortable as he will disappoint his viewers. Nevertheless, one loyal viewer says he will believe and stick with Go Insung. It seems this person is very enthusiastic about following every activity of Go Insung. Go Insung is resorting to his old ways. He waits for quite some time until his chickens lay eggs again, so he can eat those eggs that give him a lot of strength. After eating those eggs, Go Insung's spiritual energy increases. so he starts training to strengthen his muscular and powerful muscles. After that, the youth thanks his audience who patiently waits behind the hologram screen. The youth stares at the path ahead, thinking that he has eaten 20 eggs again for the muscular system. He has also focused on strengthening his status and leveling up his skills. Insung feels his preparations are sufficient and will start the struggle to pass through that dangerous corridor now. Insung runs as hard as he can while carrying a bag of chickens in his left hand. The audience is confused and doesn't understand why Insung is carrying a bag of chickens. They think Insung might just be someone fanatical about chicken eggs. Insung strengthens his focus, his face serious. With strong determination, he avoids his first trap, a large axe. Then he continues running towards the rain of arrows. Insung releases the chickens he brought to avoid the arrow rain. He even startles them so the chickens become his shields completely. Thus, he can keep running without fearing being hit by arrows. The audience is amazed to see someone like Insung thinking of using chickens as shields. Jokingly, someone says Insung should be reported for animal abuse. Insung ignores the comment and just apologizes to the chickens while continuing to run toward the end point. Suddenly, from the front, a large red knife appears, filling the entire side of the room. Insung looks shocked and panicked, but in a very short time frame, he has to think of a way to escape from that giant knife. Insung curses, but he tries to stop the momentum of the large knife with his spear. He even gets dragged back because of it. Feeling that blocking the knife is impossible, Insung finally decides to use the spear as a grip. So he jumps onto the large knife while holding onto the spear. The audience starts to panic and thinks that Insung couldn't possibly block the attack with the spear. They see the spear is about to break. But in reality, Insung manages to land safely. The system appeared and notified that Insung had entered the safe zone. Insung's breath was heavy, sweat dripping profusely from his forehead. In an instant, the young man collapsed due to fatigue and the effects of the focus-enhancing skill had worn off. Nevertheless, Insung felt relieved to have reached the safe zone. In the remaining consciousness, Insung could feel that he was lying comfortably on the sand. Moments later, Insung regained consciousness and he was shocked to realize that he had fainted for some time. When he asked how long he had been asleep, his audience told him that he had been asleep for a full week. Insung could only sigh heavily as he looked at the imposingly large gate standing before him. The gate was even taller than the obstacles in Dungeon 1-2. Insung's initial response was swearing as he stared at the distant end of the gate. He touched the wooden gate and began to say, "Since there is a door, I just need to open it." Then Insung realized there was a keyhole in the middle of the door that was exactly shaped like the very familiar four-sided arrow. The young man was very surprised to remember that the keyhole was identical to the arrow that flew towards him at the beginning of the corridor. The audience immediately laughed at Insung because he hadn't kept the arrow. Now, Insung had to go back to the beginning to retrieve the arrow. Insung slumped down and said he didn't want to go back. He refused to return to the entrance and face the terrifying obstacles again. Insung thought that if he went back, there was no guarantee he could find the arrow again. Finally, Insung tried to pick up the arrows around him. He wanted to try using those arrows to trick the keyhole, but then the young man realized that there were no arrows similar to the first arrow. Suddenly, the system appeared and announced that a player with the nickname BJ Instant Beauty had entered Dungeon 1-4. There were 68 spots left for Dungeon 1-4. Insung was surprised to learn that this person always managed to be one of the first to escape. The system announced that because there was a new arrangement entering Dungeon 1-4, the requirements had been met, and a new item had been added to the store. Insung looked even more surprised. The new option added to the store was a messenger channel. The item allowed players to communicate with streamers from other channels. However, players could only speak to streamers at the same level as them. 10 messages in the item would cost 1 balloon. Insung immediately became excited knowing that he could talk to other players. So the young man bought the item right away. Insung also received a keyboard and a chat screen. He immediately tried to contact BJ Instant Beauty. In another room, a beautiful girl was wearing red high heels. She looked graceful in a white suit that fit her perfectly, but her face looked annoyed as she said, "What nonsense is this?" The girl was annoyed to see a long corridor like the one Insung had faced before. Suddenly, a hologram screen appeared right beside the girl's face, displaying a chat message from someone that read, "Hello, Instant Beauty." A single short message successfully startled the beautiful girl. She didn't expect another participant to be able to contact her. Would they work together or undermine each other? A simple message notification made Insung smile happily. His face lit up as he thought someone else in a different room was responding to his message. The girl greeted Insung and said that his nickname was funny. Yet in her heart, she thought Insung's nickname was very silly. They continued to chat. However, the girl did so while walking along the corridor. Finally, the girl with long brown hair screamed in shock. Fortunately, she managed to dodge at the right time, so the arrow missed and landed behind her. The girl murmured, "Where did that arrow come from?" as she picked up the arrow from the ground. At that moment, she touched her forehead and then realized that one side of her forehead was slightly scratched. The beautiful girl screamed in anger as she threw the arrow that hurt her in any direction. Seeing the beauty throwing the arrow, someone watching wanted to stop the girl with the nickname Beauty from discarding the important arrow. But unfortunately, he couldn't say much or he would be dragged away. The woman's anger disappeared when she asked her audience if she had done something wrong. Now, the sweet face of a beautiful and smart girl appeared, coaxing. Beauty muttered to herself that her true self came out because of her anger earlier. So I have to quickly fix my image in front of my audience. But the audience still couldn't say the spoiler from that corridor and only asked Beauty to at least punish the naughty arrow. Another message notification from Go Insung appeared, asking if Beauty was busy. The girl just replied that she had just been stabbed by an arrow. Go Insung was surprised to read Beauty's reply and asked if she had started walking down the corridor. Beauty confirmed it. Then Go Insung asked what the arrow looked like. Beauty was puzzled and wondered why Go Insung suddenly asked that. So the girl replied. Go Insung was stunned reading the message. He rubbed his chin while thinking about this seriously. Then he thought that the girl was trying to hold him back, but he wouldn't care too much if she didn't tell him. On the other hand, Beauty began to be curious and thought, what if I told the truth that I had already discarded the arrow? After consideration, the beautiful girl finally told Go Insung that she had thrown away the arrow. In his place, Go Insung burst into laughter. The young man had already suspected that the girl would also do the same thing as him. Go Insung even received criticism from his audience for suddenly laughing so loudly. Go Insung then invited Beauty to exchange something. Beauty was surprised to hear this because she thought she had the most balloons in the area. But the girl still replied, asking what kind of exchange Go Insung wanted. The black-haired young man replied that he wanted to exchange information. So they just needed to tell each other important things. The beautiful girl at the other end of the chat smiled. It was a smile mocking. She finally replied, "Are you feeling insecure?" complete with a smiling emoji. "This foolish woman," Go Insung exclaimed after reading Beauty's response. He was not happy to be considered a coward. The girl seemed to think of herself as incompetent and weak. An audience member laughed and made snide comments as usual about Go Insung not knowing how to handle women. Finally, Go Insung replied that the girl couldn't possibly escape from this room without the arrow that had just been thrown away, complete with a laughing emoji to reply to Beauty. Instantly, Beauty's face looked panicked after reading Go Insung's message. She immediately asked what Go Insung meant and where the arrow would be used. The beautiful girl even started screaming in panic, searching for the arrow that had just been thrown away. Go Insung immediately smirked and replied, "Is the girl starting to feel desperate now?" Ignoring the incoming message, Beauty searched everywhere for the arrow. But because she was wearing high heels and was not careful enough, the beautiful girl accidentally slipped and almost fell into the pool below. But luckily, at the last moment, she managed to grab the edge of the floor and crawl back up. As she crawled up, the girl thought that in a place like this, those who explore would have more strength. So the girl put on a sweet face again and apologized to Go Insung while asking if the arrow would appear again elsewhere. Before answering the girl's question, Go Insung asked how she managed to escape from rooms 1-3. Beauty replied that she used a rope bought from a store and other items to climb the wall. Then Go Insung asked how she managed to escape. Did she climb stairs? It seemed that Beauty was starting to take Go Insung's questions seriously now. Go Insung looked pensive after reading Beauty's message. It seemed like he was imagining what obstacles might be in dungeons 1-3, which he thought might be like climbing walls or mountains, symbols representing longevity. When Go Insung still didn't reply, Beauty became impatient and asked about the arrow again. Go Insung grinned widely, then replied that the arrow was the key to exit room 1-4. Beauty immediately screamed in panic after reading it. She even messed up her hair in frustration. Then the beautiful girl asked if the arrow would appear elsewhere too. Go Insung quickly replied that it clearly wouldn't appear again. Instantly, Beauty's face turned pale and very shocked. Then she quickly asked Go Insung if she also had to find the arrow. But Go Insung lied and replied that he had the arrow. The beautiful girl immediately fell flat on her face after screaming in frustration. After that, Go Insung left, saying goodbye to the beauty who fell into despair. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Go Insung was summarizing the obstacles in each dungeon. He wrote in the sand using an arrow. The young man noted that in dungeon 1-1 there were turtles. In dungeon 1-2 there were cranes. While in dungeon 1-3 there were mountains. Of the 10 mythologies he knew, there were still the sun, water, peaches, clouds, and deer. The young man sat on the sand facing the large gate while trying to think carefully. Now, in that room, there was sand, a steel door, and tall walls that didn't match the remaining symbols. Go Insung screamed in frustration while lying and rolling on the sand. He started to get confused trying to find the midpoint of all the keys to escape from dungeon 1-4. Meanwhile, in her room, Beauty cursed in annoyance, feeling deceived by Go Insung. Beauty lay looking at the sky. She realized she didn't get useful information even though she told Go Insung she lost her arrow. but Beauty didn't want to give up. She knew the dungeon always had more than 2 ways to escape. Her eyes sparkled. She immediately got up, and her excitement returned when she thought of this conclusion. The girl sat down with enthusiasm. She remembered the past when she always got help from many men wherever and whenever. So proudly she thought, many men always line up to help me, you Hae-san. So the beautiful girl put on an innocent face again to gain sympathy from her audience. The men who had been watching and supporting Beauty immediately became angry at the figure with the nickname Please Save Me. Comments on Beauty's live streaming started to heat up. The men who had been watching became emotional because the girl seemed weak and hurt. Even a hardcore fan of Beauty immediately sent 15 balloons as a gift to soothe Beauty's heartache. This made the girl even more enthusiastic about acting. Behind the gift, there was a mysterious man who thought that Go Insung acted arrogantly just because he got first place once. So he used those balloon gifts to cheer up Beauty. Beauty thanked him while wiping fake tears from her face. Then another notification popped up, informing that someone had sent another 20 balloons as a gift for Beauty, saying to her that she hadn't done anything wrong. It seems that the person had a victim mentality. Beauty thanked that person, saying that she was not good at talking to men. The girl was good at putting on a sweet face and appearing fragile to be sheltered by her audience. Another notification appeared, announcing that Beauty's #1 fan had entered. The supportive figure of Beauty's biggest fan entered and immediately said, I came right away after hearing what happened to Beauty. Who's the damn guy who dared to mess with my idol? The mysterious figure sounded very angry. Beauty was immediately happy to see her loyal supporters' arrival. This girl immediately acted coquettishly and extremely sweet to welcome her #1 fan. Beauty knew the figure with the nickname Queen Bee was her channel's biggest fan. She earned that title after watching Beauty's channel for 200 hours and sending over 1,000 balloons. Beauty was very happy with that figure. She looked very happy remembering how much this account had helped her. Queen Bee of Ethics had sent 100 balloons. After sending quite a lot of gifts, the figure said that if that person acted naughty with Beauty again, then she should tell that figure immediately. She wouldn't go easy on anyone who disturbed Beauty. She would just beat that person until they're battered. The mysterious figure strongly supported Beauty. Just like this, she was already so passionate. She wanted to protect Beauty in any way possible, even though it's clear Beauty didn't know her well. The beautiful girl smiled sweetly and said she would tell Queen Bee. Although in her heart, Beauty thought men just like to boast. Beauty sighed heavily. She prepared while staring at the long corridor in front of her. She started to conclude this, I need to get a grip and rethink my situation. This path is used by those who flee. She didn't say specifically, but the girl was sure if Go Insung didn't have an arrow either, because if Go Insung had it, he would have already left the dungeon. Beauty's gaze turned sharp. She started thinking about how to get out, then escape from this dungeon safely, and as a champion. The girl suddenly removed the armor from her body. She even took off her blazer and shirt, leaving only her underwear. Her audience started to get excited and asked what the girl was doing. The girl stared at the pool below her, precisely in front of the big waves crashing against the wall. The determination on her face was very strong. Then, with confidence, she jumped into the seemingly dangerous water, making her audience even more panicked and screaming excitedly as if wanting to stop the girl from jumping into the large pool. Meanwhile, inside dungeon, Go Insung was still perplexed. He stared at the holographic screen displaying shop information indicating that in Dungeons 1-4, there was water, bread, cloth armor, and leather armor. He shouted in frustration. The young man remained seated in front of the towering gate, still contemplating whether he really couldn't replace the first arrow. He muttered while touching the cold dungeon floor. Elsewhere, the beautiful girl returned to the wall's edge and emerged from the water. As she struggled to climb, she thought, I knew it. My guess was right. I can avoid traps like this. She continued to cling to the wall's side. The spectators praised her brilliance and agility. The beautiful girl explained that she got a clue when she was searching for the first arrow and fell earlier. But now, she faces a new problem. She had to endure all the way, holding on to whatever grip she could find. She seemed to be having difficulty holding on to the wall side. Inside the dungeon, Go Insung still hadn't done anything. He continued to analyze every obstacle faced in each dungeon. The first room had turtles, the second had chickens, and the third had mountains. So the rest would be like this. One of them must be for themes 1-4, he said while continuing to analyze. The young man kept spinning the arrow in his hand, with his other hand rubbing his chin. A characteristic gesture when thinking. He then concluded the earth floor, iron gates, high walls, and honey. Go Insung carefully considered everything but still found nothing. Frustrated, he broke the arrow in his hand. It was then that he realized something. The arrow he was holding was made of bamboo. What would he do with that arrow? Meanwhile, in her room, Beauty began to struggle, clinging to the wall's edge. She realized she had reached her limit, and she might fall soon. Her body even started trembling from exhaustion as she hung on the wall's edge. However, she remained determined to endure. She thought she was almost there. Finally, Beauty climbed back up the wall. She sat on the edge, bowing her head. The beautiful girl tried to catch her breath properly, until suddenly, thud, an arrow shot out and quickly pierced Beauty's shoulder. Without armor, her smooth body was easily wounded by the arrow. Beauty groaned in pain as her body was tormented. The girl with chestnut hair fell back into the honey lake. It seems the attack wound was serious enough to render her unconscious, dizzy, and falling into the deep pool. Beauty. No. Beauty's spectators began to panic. They couldn't bear to see their idol injured, let alone falling from such a height. Switching to Insung's dungeon, the young man was dipping the bamboo tip into the honey. He understood very well that honey could provide life force. Then, as he stuck the bamboo tip into the ground, Insung said there was a reason why the dungeon ground was slightly muddy. The spectators immediately speculated that Insung was inspired by the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, but they still questioned when the bamboo would grow as tall as the gate. They wondered how much bamboo would grow. Insung then waited. He looked up, hoping for a miracle to come down from the sky. On the other side, Insung's spectators continued to doubt his decision. They considered what the young man was doing to be nothing more than futile experimentation. Dyurr. The beautiful girl with the nickname Beauty fell into the honey pool. At such a critical moment, she remembered the past. The time when she was still practicing martial arts with her strict teacher. Beauty vividly remembered what her teacher sternly advised. The old man asked Beauty how she could survive in a tiger's den. With great enthusiasm at that time, the beautiful girl with the nickname Beauty answered that the way was to become a tiger. The teacher approved his students' answers and urged them not to give up no matter the situation because he believed there was always a way to overcome every problem. In this way, the teacher successfully boosted the spirits of his students. At that moment, the innocent Beauty asked her father and coach how she could become a tiger. Now, the tough princess, a martial arts coach's daughter, fell into the bottom of the lake. Would she find a way to escape death this time? Different from Beauty, Insung was lying relaxed on the ground while continually gazing at the large gate in front of him. He thought most bamboo should be around 4 to 5 meters tall. The problem was the gate's height probably reached 20 meters. The young man realized there was an exit located further above the wooden gate. The exit was just a circular door that looked very distant. Insung suddenly realized he was hungry, so he opened the shop on the hologram screen and bought bread to fill his hungry stomach. At that moment, he suddenly saw something surprising on the hologram screen. It was so shocking that his eyes widened. There was currently an item for acceleration of growth. He carefully tried to understand the information on the hologram screen about this new potion. The growth acceleration potion had a common rank. This liquid could accelerate the growth of living creatures, increasing the growth rate up to 100 times, and did not affect pets. The young man wondered if this meant there were no limits to plant growth. Moreover, bamboo trees were known to grow rapidly, so Insung immediately took the growth potion from the hologram screen. The young man felt like he had found a ray of opportunity. Would he succeed in using this method? Suddenly, an announcement from the system said that someone else had successfully entered Dungeon 1-4. Insung started to panic upon hearing this notification. He thought, they're all coming, so he has no choice. Then quickly this young man poured water into bottles on 2 bamboos he planted in the ground. Then he waited patiently. Before long, the 2 small bamboo stems began to move quickly, making quite a loud noise, and getting stronger as the 2 bamboos grew rapidly. Meanwhile, Beauty finally resurfaced in the pond. Strongly, she pulled out the arrow stuck in her shoulder. This girl said she would get out of there even if she had to become a tiger. The girl was even able to break the arrow with her bare hands. After that, she swam with all her might to get out of the deep pool. Now her spirit for freedom had returned. Insung immediately firmly held both bamboo blades. Then quickly the young man climbed to the top along with the rapid growth of the bamboo. As he suspected, this way was very effective for climbing up. The spectators encouraged and supported Insung because his method succeeded once again. But at this moment, Insung realized that the bamboo was getting thicker so that his palms could hardly hold the bamboo if not for the help of the muscular system. At this moment, Insung sat on top of the bamboo at an extraordinary height. From here, the dungeon floor was no longer visible. Holding onto another bamboo, Insung smiled and told his audience that he wouldn't stop there. The young man immediately climbed the slippery bamboo tree. Would his method succeed again this time? With all his might, Insung grasped the slippery and itchy bamboo to climb higher. His audience started to get bored and asked why Insung kept climbing. They began to suggest that this young man stop wasting time. But he didn't stop and kept climbing because he saw the object in front of him more clearly. At first, he saw something on the ceiling, but then he realized it was a handhold. The young man was sure that the handhold was meant to be climbed. So, following his instinct, he kept holding onto the iron bar on the roof while continuing to walk towards the small door in the middle of the roof. Insung finally found that small door and easily opened the small iron door to reach something inside. When Insung finally held onto something, the young man was very happy. The audience immediately asked Insung to show them the object. but the young man tried to show them the object when he came down later. The young man realized that there was a bridge right below him. So without much thought, he jumped down from an extraordinary height onto the long road below. Crash! He fell so hard that the ground beneath him suffered damage. As he landed, a reddish glowing object he had been holding became visible. The system explained that it was the celestial bamboo fruit. The object had a rare rank. For details, the fruit only grew on celestial bamboo trees. It was the favorite food of the phoenix bird. It would greatly improve someone's health after consumption. But there was also a warning that if someone had a weak physical body, they might not be able to hold it. As the notification sounds about the extremely rare and valuable celestial bamboo fruit came in, the audience still laughed at the young man. They doubted that the extremely rare and valuable celestial bamboo fruit would be useful to Go Insung, especially since the fruit was only useful for taming the rare animal, the phoenix. Go Insung decided to put the fruit in his inventory so he wouldn't lose that important item. As usual, the young man skillfully ignored the comments that cornered him. Go Insung stared at the open door behind him. The young man wondered if it was the actual entrance. What if it was a trap? From the door, a fairly bright and soothing light emanated. Slowly, the young man began to step towards the bright shining small door, pushing aside his doubts. As he passed through the door, a notification from the system appeared again. As Go Insung's foot passed through the door, the system appeared and informed that the young man had successfully entered the tunnel connected to Dungeon 1-5. Go Insung immediately cheered with joy. He thought he had successfully entered the next dungeon, until finally, crunch, he fell into the trapdoor right in front of the tunnel entrance. The young man fell and kept sliding into the trapdoor. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Beauty was sitting on the steps stretching her arms that had been pierced by an arrow earlier. She muttered to herself, "I'm almost fully recovered since I used the life honey from 1-3. She touched her shoulder, which was now smooth again, as if there were no remaining wounds from the arrow. That was the effect of the highly effective magic honey for healing wounds. The girl realized there were stairs below her. If she climbed up, it would surely lead to the tunnel entrance. That was the conclusion Beauty made. She stared sharply at the stairs in front of her. But suddenly, whoosh, the beautiful girl jumped down back into the pond. She swam to the bottom of the pond to find the arrow with a unique tip, the one she had previously discarded and lost. The girl thought, because there was a glowing stone at the bottom, it wouldn't be difficult to find it. So she continued to swim and search the bottom of the pond to find the arrow with the special tip. Not long after, Beauty truly found the arrow. Her eyes immediately sparkled seeing the glittering tip of the arrow, which was the most different from the other arrows. Without hesitation, the girl picked up the arrow and took it away. Beauty finally resurfaced. She climbed up one step at a time. As she said, "Now if I return to the entrance and pass through the tunnel, I can enter 1-5. The Beauty looked confident as she stepped forward, holding an arrow in her hand. The girl was certain that she would soon enter levels 1-5 after successfully opening the gate. Meanwhile, Go Insung continued to slide down the very long tunnel. He kept screaming, trying to ask for help, which seemed futile. The young man kept falling, occasionally holding his head to avoid hitting the hard tunnel walls. Finally, he saw a light at the end of the corridor. The young man prepared himself to face whatever lay ahead when he landed. Finally, Go Insung landed in a more open area. He looked around and found land covered with tall grass and a circle of light resembling a moon. "Oh, the full moon," he exclaimed as he saw the perfectly round moon shape. The system appeared and announced that the user with the nickname Please Save Me was the first person to enter Dungeon 1-5. The first participant would be given a special reward, an F-rank random skillbook chest. The remaining capacity of Dungeon 1-5 is now 49. Beauty stood in front of the long road in Dungeon 1-4. She looked annoyed after hearing the announcement that Go Insung had become the first person to enter Dungeon 1-5. The girl immediately suspected something about Go Insung. She wanted to catch up with Go Insung as soon as possible, said Beauty with a blazing fighting spirit in her eyes. Another player thought that he was not the only one thinking about it. "It must be the same for all participants from 1-4, muttered a young man standing at the end of the road in Dungeon 1-4. TS is first again. The green-haired young man sounded unhappy because he was still at the beginning of the long road. This won't work. I think I need to teach the user Please Save Me important life lessons, said a big man who was still trapped at the edge of the wall in Dungeon 1-4. He sounded annoyed because PS always ranks first. "If I didn't have this robe, I would be dead. Why is PS so fast?" uttered a girl wearing traditional brown clothing. She was still confused about how to get out of Dungeon 1-4. The other participants still trapped in Dungeon 1-4 began to grumble. They started thinking of ways to catch up with PS or Go Insung faster. "I have over 900 balloons. Besides, I've got heavenly bamboo fruit and a random skill book," Go Insung thought as he checked his inventory on the hologram screen. The young man looked pleased that he had made it this far with so many savings. One of Go Insung's spectators asked him to open the book and try the heavenly bamboo fruit he had just acquired. Go Insung, nicknamed PS, did not immediately respond to the comment. He seemed to carefully consider which one he should use first. Go Insung finally decided he should save the heavenly bamboo fruit for emergencies. So for now, he would open the skill book chest. Finally, Go Insung took out a small gleaming box. The box turned out to contain an ancient book. The Iron Will, PS murmured as he read a line of words on the book's cover. The spectators did not expect the Iron Will book to appear in the session now. Seeing the reactions of the spectators, Go Insung was sure that the book he had obtained must be very good. So, the young man smiled broadly and immediately opened the book, which emitted a beautiful gleaming light. As the first page was opened, the system appeared and announced that this young man had obtained the Iron Will book, which was a skill window. Thus, Go Insung's abilities were activated. The first skill he obtained from this book was concentration reinforcement. With the special skill from the book, his ability would increase in terms of statistics and physical for 3 minutes automatically before he dies. But if the user exceeds the maximum level, then the skill level will increase even more. Before death. What does that mean? The young man looked shocked as he read this part. Ha 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 ha. Do you think that's good and have high hopes for it? Huh. If you use it, you'll end up with us. One of the spectators said, sounding satisfied as he laughed at Go Insung. A frustrating skill that will kill me after using it. Go Insung sounded despondent as he thought about this. But one of the spectators then explained that the explanation was not complete, and that ability would show its true value when he was in a desperate situation later. Go Insung became excited again hearing that. But then the spectator said that Go Insung was only directed by a conversation intended to attract his attention based on his interests. Go Insung's expression immediately changed to annoyance. He just realized that he was being played by his audience. Ring. Suddenly, the system appeared notifying that Go Insung could choose his manager. Instantly, the young man with black hair was surprised once again. I can summon a manager. Go Insung repeated this important vocabulary. He immediately sought more detailed information about the manager. The young man thought this was a system helping him to give authority. The live streaming audience began to clamor to be chosen by Go Insung. But Go Insung had already made a decision. He had decided to choose someone who always paid attention to him and gave him a balloon gift from the start. Go Insung smiled broadly with peace, remembering the person who always paid attention to and supported him. Then, with enthusiasm, Go Insung said that he chose self-reflection, and pleaded for that figure to come out immediately. The system appeared and announced that Go Insung had decided to choose self-reflection as his first manager. If later Go Insung wants an additional manager, then he must reach a higher rank. Suddenly, the wind blew fiercely and a shining yellow light fell right in front of Go Insung. Along with the light, appeared a figure who was tall and sturdy. He said, how long has it been? The mysterious man had a distinctive heavy voice. His hair was long and blonde. His clothes were also very unique, making Go Insung and the audience puzzled. Go Insung then realized that the person was a stranger, not a Korean. Go Insung examined every inch of the appearance of the adult man in front of him. The young man seemed to be weighing how to communicate with his new manager. But suddenly, the stranger asked if Go Insung was disappointed because his new manager was an unfamiliar older person. Go Insung quickly answered no. From his facial expression, Go Insung seemed uncomfortable because of his disrespectful behavior towards his new manager. The adult man then said that he was glad to meet Go Insung. But then this man explained that in the outside world, he was usually called by a different name. While shaking hands with Go Insung, he said that his real name was Socrates. Go Insung asked with a puzzled expression whether the man in front of him was indeed a philosophical figure as well as a legend in history. Annoyed, Socrates confirmed it. Go Insung then asked how the stranger could speak Korean so fluently. Socrates replied, because he has been in this place for 2,000 years. The audience laughed, considering Socrates to have rotted in that place. Go Insung, surprised by Socrates' answer, asked how he could survive in that place for 2,000 years. Was it true that he didn't reincarnate or something? Socrates laughed heartily at Go Insung's question, who might have thought that place was hell or something similar. According to him, hell was where Go Insung lived before. Socrates stated that in the human world, everyone initially had to pay for postnatal care and then spend more money on food and baby items. Additionally, everyone had to spend money and more money on their children until college. Even if someone graduated from college, they had to write many resumes to try to apply for a job. If successful, they could go to a good company, but even then, they wouldn't be able to buy a house even though they had worked all their lives. And when someone eventually died, their family had to pay a fairly expensive funeral cost, but still, others would judge their way of life. So Socrates asked, isn't that a sad way of living? Go Insung fell silent, unable to deny the truth spoken by Socrates. To divert the awkwardness, Go Insung asked if Socrates couldn't change his body. With a broad smile, Socrates asked if Go Insung was worried because he was an old man. Go Insung replied that he just thought Socrates was the same age as himself. So Socrates asked if Go Insung was disappointed because he was older. Annoyed at running out of words while speaking with Socrates, Go Insung asked why the old man always managed to silence him. Socrates replied that his new hobby now was making Go Insung jokes. Simply put, because it amused him. The audience began to laugh at their interaction. Moreover, every word spoken by Socrates was true. As they continued chatting, suddenly a roar was heard from behind Go Insung. When the young man looked back, he was shocked to see the appearance of a humanoid creature that was already dried up. Go Insung looked worried as the creature continued to drool when looking at him. Suddenly, the creature quickly ran towards Go Insung's arm and grabbed his hand. Socrates told Go Insung to quickly get rid of the creature before it saw blood. Go Insung immediately grabbed the creature's head and threw it to the ground while shouting for the creature to stay away from him. With a worried expression, this young man touched his bleeding hand and asked what the creature was. Socrates asked if Go Insung had never seen an undead before. Socrates explained that the creature would not die unless someone severed its head. And according to him, the way Go Insung beat it up was not enough to kill it. He informed me that the creature would still writhe and walk again in about half an hour. Go Insung was shocked to hear this information. Socrates explained further that Go Insung had to pass through the labyrinth on their side to avoid the undead. But before that, Socrates reminded Go Insung that he was bleeding quite a lot, and the audience who saw so much blood thought that Go Insung would soon die from blood loss and join them. But Go Insung did not respond to their comments. The young man reached into the hologram screen to retrieve his pet turtle and, with a friendly smile, welcomed the creature and then told it to pay him because he had fed it. The mystical turtle licked Go Insung's bleeding arm until the wound immediately healed and the scar disappeared. Go Insung then thought he should change his clothes, which looked gruesome. The audience agreed with Go Insung's statement. The young man's appearance was already too gruesome. After putting on a short-sleeved white shirt, Go Insung placed the mystical turtle on his shoulder, saying that the creature would accompany him. But before that, he had to buy a weapon at the store. When faced with the dilemma of choosing a weapon, Socrates asked if Go Insung knew anything about the art of using weapons. The young man honestly replied that he did not know. Socrates suggested Go Insung choose a spear because it is the oldest weapon in history. The spear is very economical and anyone can learn to use it. Socrates also explained that swords are more suitable for soldiers, while arrows are not good for close range. Go Insung carefully considered Socrates' advice. He examined all the weapon lists on the hologram screen carefully. The young man thought that the most expensive weapon he could buy was a diamond-tipped spear priced at 800 balloons. But because he didn't know how difficult the dungeon was, he decided to start with a bamboo spear first. The audience immediately protested against Go Insung because bamboo spears were too weak. They believed that a bamboo spear would break within 1 second, whereas Go Insung's life depended on that weapon. Go Insung reconsidered and asked about a rusty spear. The audience was surprised that he would buy a rusty spear when he could buy a steel one with just an additional 50 balloons. Go Insung decided that he would buy a steel spear. But then his audience was puzzled as to why he would buy it when there was a spear with a central point with just an additional 1 or 2 points. They believed that an ordinary elephant would not be comparable to hard steel. Go Insung was annoyed. His audience kept wavering over him. They kept suggesting that Go Insung buy a thick steel weapon or a diamond-tipped spear. But before that, the audience asked him to beg for 469 points to buy the diamond-tipped spear. According to Go Insung, it was a genius idea. He immediately put on a cute, adorable face to win Socrates' heart. Annoyed by Go Insung's behavior, Socrates immediately gave him more balloons. Finally, Go Insung bought a diamond-tipped spear. The spear was made of crystal and had the power to kill up to 10%. Go Insung immediately tried the spear and thought that it was great compared to the weapons he saw in the treasure dungeon. The audience thought that the weapon looked very suitable and powerful when used by Go Insung, who was a gym bro. At that moment, Socrates reminded Go Insung that the sun was about to set, so they had to get to work. Before entering the labyrinth, the system appeared and announced that they could enter directly but first had to step on hexagonal stones. Before entering the labyrinth, they were asked to choose the level of difficulty. There were expert, intermediate, and beginner levels. The higher the difficulty level, the better the rewards. Go Insung thought that he would choose the difficulty level, but suddenly Socrates chose the expert level, which was the highest difficulty level. This surprised Go Insung. Go Insung wanted to explain that he wanted to choose the beginner level first. But Socrates insisted that he must choose the expert level. Finally, the system confirmed that the difficulty level was expert. Go Insung panicked hearing that. But Socrates thought that the young man was foolish because how could he think of taking the easy way out when the rewards would surely be better if the difficulty level was higher. Finally, they were both transferred to the starting point of Dungeons 1-5. The atmosphere here was very tense. The reddish moon shone over the barren battlefield. The system explained that this place was a labyrinth where many prisoners tried to escape and lost their lives. Above the sky, the moon observed the prisoners at all times. If a player had strong determination and wisdom, then he could surely escape from that place. In this session, only 2 people entered. Insung, who was not very understanding, asked Socrates what it meant by a total of 4 people being able to enter. Socrates explained that it meant he could bring in several more people. Suddenly, Socrates shouted for Insung to focus. Suddenly, several undead monsters appeared attacking them. Insung tried to dodge and fight them with the spear he had just obtained. Unexpectedly, this young man managed to chop off the heads of several undead at once. However, Insung's journey was still long, especially now that undead monsters with wings appeared. The monster managed to knock down Insung and press him to the ground. The young man's body trembled because he was worried he would die right then and there. Seeing this, Socrates only sighed and shook his head briefly. He seemed not to worry at all about Insung. But suddenly, Socrates entered Insung's body and defeated the pressing undead monsters with a single explosion. Among the blazing fire, burning the undead, Insung stood with a different aura. He said he would show the abilities of a 2,000-year-old man to go insane. It was Socrates speaking through Insung's body. The undead monsters came again. But this time, with Socrates' help, Insung looked more prepared. He aimed his spear to welcome any monster that came. When one monster attacked, Insung agilely avoided it. Then he attacked the monster from behind. The audience started to get excited seeing how agile Socrates was behind Insung's body. Another monster came to attack. With sharp eyesight and precise movements, Insung managed to chop off the monster's head. The audience became more excited, commenting on how cool and amazing Socrates was. Socrates suddenly called Insung and said that the young man had dynamic visual acuity and reaction speed, so he had to thank the eggs he ate. They gave him good physical abilities. If they missed even for a moment, they wouldn't be able to get into position for the next move. Socrates reminded Insung to dodge and attack at the right time. Insung quickly responded that he understood that. At that moment, several other undead monsters appeared. Insung, who was still silent, was immediately addressed by Socrates. The manager wanted to Insung, who was now taking action according to his instructions so that he would continue to take control. Insung readily agreed to that. He tightly gripped his spear to attack the monsters approaching him. This time, Insung wasted no movement and stabbed directly, defeating his opponent. The spectators were delighted to see the results of Socrates' teachings immediately benefiting Insung. Insung continued to fight, facing every monster after successfully dodging their attacks. Insung was no longer afraid or scared. In this spirited and fiery battle, Insung could feel his strength increasing. The system then appeared and announced that Insung's abilities, strength, and focus had successfully reached level 3. Insung was happy that he could finally level up. But according to Socrates, it was not yet time to feel happy, because right behind them, several undead monsters had managed to rise again and were about to attack Insung once more. Seeing this, Insung was shocked. He did not expect the monsters to rise again so quickly. Through a hologram screen, Socrates explained that if Insung did not destroy their heads, they would continue to rise. So he had to quickly get holy water instead of just standing there with a panicked face. Insung immediately followed Socrates' command. The youth took holy water from his inventory and dripped it onto the monster's head. The youth thought he would only use a little of the water because it was very valuable. But suddenly the monster went berserk after being given a small drop of holy water. Panicked, Insung immediately poured holy water into the monster's mouth until only then did the undead monster's body slowly disappear. Insung could only breathe a sigh of relief after being so frightened earlier. But the youth realized he had to use the entire bottle to defeat one monster. That meant he used 10 balloons to kill one monster, but now he only had 150 left. The youth looked confused and asked what he should do considering there were still many undead monsters left. The monsters crawled towards Insung, who was still standing there in confusion. At that moment, Socrates suddenly said, "There is a saying that knowledge is power." Socrates took out Insung's mystical turtle, saying that the turtle was a direct descendant of the black tortoise. Socrates placed the small turtle on the ground, causing the monsters to immediately fall silent in fear. The spectators were shocked to see the monsters' reaction. They were amazed at how the monsters could be scared just by a small turtle. Suddenly, the turtle emitted a holy energy that instantly destroyed all the monsters in front of it. This surprised Go Insung even more. Socrates himself was impressed watching from behind Go Insung's body. He became even more convinced that the turtle was a direct descendant of the black tortoise. Socrates explained that those who come from pure descendants are like a bright red bird symbolizing yang, while the black tortoise symbolizes yin. Thus, like light and darkness controlling death and dark energy. Go Insung just smiled upon hearing the explanation. The spectators who witnessed all of this thought that Socrates not only knew how to communicate but also knew many interesting stories. Socrates emphasized that the way the black mystical turtle grew was by absorbing impure yang energy and sending souls back to hell, like a tree absorbing carbon dioxide and purifying it into oxygen. That's the simple knowledge that Go Insung could understand. After Go Insung's turtle cleared all the undead monsters, the youth immediately approached it, and said that fundamentally, the way the turtle worked must be different from the way a tree worked. So the youth admitted that the previous assumption was wrong. Socrates argued that it was good to recognize one's ignorance as the beginning of gaining wisdom. The spectators laughed at the conversation between the two of them. Then they asked what else Go Insung and Socrates would do next. Go Insung smiled, realizing that he was greatly assisted by Socrates' presence, whom he initially thought was just someone with many balloons. Before continuing the journey, Go Insung sincerely thanked Socrates, who was now confused. But Go Insung explained that he was grateful for everything. But Socrates replied that it was nothing. Now, Go Insung stood up and asked how he could get out of that place. Socrates reminded Go Insung of the explanation before entering the labyrinth. He also reminded him of someone who managed to escape the labyrinth with the help of a thread. Go Insung realized something and dropped some breadcrumbs while thinking that the monsters would not likely use those breadcrumbs. The spectators immediately realized that Go Insung's attitude was inspired by the story of Hansel and Gretel. When Go Insung began his journey, Instant Beauty finally managed to enter Dungeon 1-5. The beautiful girl immediately picked up the breadcrumbs dropped by Go Insung with a cold stare. Go Insung continued to drop breadcrumbs. He realized it had been 2 days since Instant Beauty entered the dungeon, but the girl still didn't contact him. Go Insung wondered if she intended to finish the dungeon alone. He concluded that they probably wanted the dungeon to be completed by a team, considering the specified number of participants allowed. Go Insung wanted to contact Instant Beauty to invite her to cooperate but thought she might lose if she dared to try something funny. So Go Insung continued walking with Socrates while dropping breadcrumbs. They realized it was getting dark again. The moonlight seemed to be fading, but the moon didn't move at all. Go Insung realized that the monsters wouldn't attack him if he didn't approach them first. He deduced that the monsters relied solely on their sense of smell. Go Insung discreetly observed the path ahead. Since he saw all the monsters gathering on one path, he decided to go another way. But Socrates urged Go Insung to approach the monsters. Go Insung said they didn't need to waste time and should take another path. But in the end, they only found a dead end. Go Insung was annoyed because it took them an hour to pass through just one path. Socrates remarked that this was the consequence of Go Insung not listening to him. Go Insung replied, saying there were monsters there. But Socrates explained that there must be a reason why the monsters gathered there. Suddenly, Go Insung realized that the scattered breadcrumbs were gone. He searched in all directions but found nothing. Go Insung panicked and wondered if the monsters had eaten the breadcrumbs. Socrates calmly replied that monsters don't eat breadcrumbs. At that moment, Go Insung heard someone saying, "What about this direction?" When he turned to the source of the sound, Go Insung was sure it was Instant Beauty, so he greeted the girl warmly. The audience began to buzz as they watched these two champions finally meet. Go Insung was slightly relieved to see that the woman in front of him wasn't as big as he imagined, considering her specialization and power. He was also momentarily stunned by the sword on Beauty's waist, which cost 16 balloons. The sword was indestructible and very expensive. He suspected Beauty was very wealthy. Socrates whispered to Go Insung, telling him that the girl could be so powerful because she was controlled by her manager. Socrates could guarantee that. Seeing the two men whispering, Beauty asked why they were whispering. Were they the shy type of men? It was evident that Socrates didn't like Beauty at this point. He told Go Insung to ask Beauty about the missing breadcrumbs. But before they could talk, they both unintentionally spoke at the same time. Finally, Beauty asked Go Insung to speak first. Go Insung immediately asked if Beauty had picked up and eaten the fallen breadcrumbs. Beauty massaged her head upon hearing such a question. Then, with fervor, she explained that she couldn't possibly do that because she brought enough bread from Dungeon 1-4. Roughly, she asked if Go Insung thought she looked like a starving pigeon. The audience laughed at Go Insung's behavior. Beauty couldn't have done that because she had enough balloons to buy food. However, Go Insung insisted that everyone makes mistakes, but if they repent and correct their mistakes, they deserve to live. Socrates fully agreed with Go Insung's statement. considering it the most famous quote in human history. Continuously accused, Beauty scolded Socrates and asked him not to interfere in this matter. Socrates was offended at being called old because he was only slightly older than Soul's history. Beauty firmly denied eating the breadcrumbs. Annoyed, Socrates remarked that today's youth were very rude. But Beauty retorted again, saying it was because Socrates was an old man with little insight. Beauty was very annoyed and frustrated with the situation. But then she noticed a small turtle comfortably perched on Go Insung's shoulder. So she asked where Go Insung got the turtle from. Go Insung replied that the creature wasn't just an ordinary turtle, it was a mystical turtle. Angrily, Beauty said she didn't care about mystical animals. She just wanted to know if it wasn't the turtle that ate her breadcrumbs. Go Insung defended the turtle by saying it was a mystical creature with secrets, and it didn't eat breadcrumbs, especially not the ones already dropped. And even if the little turtle tried to do so, Go Insung would stop it immediately. Angry and frustrated, Beauty asked if Go Insung meant to say that she was worse than the little turtle. The mystical turtle, not accepting it, immediately scolded Beauty. It shocked her that a turtle could raise its voice at her. Not only that, but the turtle could also become angrier and more fiery as if trying to hurl harsh words at her. The audience laughed at the argument between the beautiful girl and the mystical turtle. Feeling defeated, Beauty asked her manager, Queen Bee, to come out and help her. Hearing this nickname, Socrates was surprised and asked if the Queen Bee Beauty referred to as Queen Bee the Ethics. Beauty was surprised at Socrates' response and asked if he knew her manager. Socrates wasn't too concerned about who Queen Bee was, but he was upset because that person had caused a lot of trouble lately. So he wanted to meet the person with the nickname Queen Bee. Go Insung provoked Beauty's anger again by assuming that she didn't eat her breadcrumbs. Beauty was still angry and stated that was indeed the fact. Finally, she apologized and retracted all her previous statements, though her face still looked very angry. Go Insung apologized for seeming rough even though this was the first time. The Beauty replied that it didn't matter as long as he knew, everything was fine. Go Insung then suggested that since it required 4 people for this level, they might want to work together to complete it. Beauty hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing that she thought so too. Go Insung then asked if they should go somewhere else other than where the undead monsters gathered. Beauty quickly replied no. She invited Go Insung to go there because it seemed like something important was there. Socrates observed that Beauty knew what was needed to choose the right path. Finally, Go Insung allowed Beauty to go ahead. Upon arriving on the road filled with monsters, the 3 of them realized that the monsters seemed not to see or hear them. Go Insung glanced at Beauty and realized that she must not be an ordinary person. So when he tried to divide the opponents among them, with 4 monsters for each, suddenly Beauty leaped with her sword, striking the first monster she encountered. Go Insung was surprised to see someone attacking monsters so quickly. To him, Beauty's movements were so fast it was as if she had just teleported. Despite her beautiful appearance, Beauty looked very agile in attacking the monsters in front of her. The girl didn't seem bothered at all, even though the monster's blood splattered on her face. Not wanting to be outdone by Beauty, Go Insung immediately advanced to attack the monsters after increasing his focus to level 3. Go Insung moved forward and quickly disposed of the monsters coming from behind Beauty. He said that he would hear a thank you from Beauty later, but with a stern face, Beauty replied that it was just Go Insung's dream. Go Insung attacked the monsters coming towards him again. Quickly, he managed to cut off several monster heads rushing towards him. The audience increasingly admired Go Insung's agility and prowess in combat. After they fought, they both thanked the audience, especially for the audience who kept giving them rewards. Go Insung was surprised to find a wooden box with a bull's head symbol on it. He suspected that the object had been protected by the undead monsters. Beauty asked Go Insung to open the box immediately. When the wooden box was opened, it contained an ancient scroll which turned out to be a map of the labyrinth. But the system warned that if the map was opened, it would attract energy that would make the monsters attack them immediately. Go Insung wanted to open the map, but Beauty prevented him, reminding him that if the map was opened, the monsters would immediately come. Finally, Go Insung decided to keep the map and think about how to avoid the monsters first. Beauty said they needed to buy holy water first to destroy the monsters, so Go Insung should do that immediately. Go Insung smiled and asked how many bottles of holy water Beauty had. She replied that she still had 5 bottles. Go Insung then said he would eliminate all the monsters, but in return, they had to share the holy water. Go Insung explained that he didn't have enough water. Beauty wondered in amazement if the young man in front of her would drink holy water like ordinary water. Go Insung ignored Beauty's question and asked if they agreed. Beauty suspected that the young man in front of her didn't have enough money to buy drinking water. Finally, Beauty agreed to the exchange between them. After that, Go Insung immediately placed the mystical tortoise on the ground so that it quickly emitted light from its mouth and removed the undead monsters. Now Beauty realized that the tortoise was not ordinary. Go Insung explained that the tortoise was a mystical creature, a direct descendant of the famous black tortoise. This time, the tortoise could even remove them faster than before. The audience was even amazed to see such a small tortoise could eliminate many undead monsters in a short time. Until finally, only one monster remained. Insung thought that the monster had a very good sense of smell, but he was still confused about how the monster could attack so accurately in the right direction. To conduct a test, Insung prevented his tortoise from removing the last monster. Beauty, seeing this, was surprised because the monster could quickly rise again. Insung took out the fruit of the heavenly bamboo from his inventory. He knew that the fruit had a very strong life force. Then he asked Mr. Socrates to hold the heavenly bamboo fruit. Then he asked Mr. Socrates to stand between him and Beauty. Right after the undead monster regained its strength, it immediately attacked Mr. Socrates. Angry, Mr. Socrates struck back at the monster while yelling, questioning whether the monster lost its mind since it was also an undead itself. Nevertheless, the monster kept trying to attack Mr. Socrates until Beauty finally chopped off its head, causing it to fall. Still shocked, Mr. Socrates asked why the monster had attacked him. Insung explained that it might have been because of the fruit held by Mr. Socrates. So, Insung concluded that the monster necklaces didn't react to the scent but rather to life energy. According to Insung, that was the solution to this problem, a way to distract the monsters while he read the map. Mr. Socrates asked if Insung meant for him to hold the object to lure the monsters. He couldn't understand why Insung would want to discard something as valuable as the fruit. Insung explained that Mr. Socrates only needed to consume a little of the fruit and then run until his life force depleted. He believed this was a perfect plan. So, Insung would open the map and read it. When the monsters appeared, Mr. Socrates would lure them away while he and Beauty fled. Then, when everything was safe and Mr. Socrates' life force was depleted, he could return with them. However, suddenly Mr. Socrates said he didn't want to do it. This surprised Beauty and Insung. They both asked why Mr. Socrates refused. Mr. Socrates turned the question back to Beauty, asking why her manager couldn't do it instead. Why did he have to run? Mr. Socrates urged Beauty to quickly bring her manager out to join them. Insung agreed to this. Finally, Beauty asked her manager to come out immediately, or else she would feel very bad. Suddenly, a flash of blue light appeared before them all. Mr. Socrates was the first to react, looking very surprised to see Beauty's manager. The figure in ancient attire walked, saying it had been a long time for him and his teacher, Mr. Socrates, to meet. Beauty's manager was Mr. Socrates' student Plotto. Mr. Socrates and Plotto greeted each other after a long time. But the audience was annoyed with their acting, saying it wasn't important now. Beauty herself was shocked to learn that her strong supporter all this time was Plotto. Socrates said he hadn't seen his student recently, so he asked if Plotto was talking nonsense or what problem his student had caused. Or was his student hiding because he was too ashamed to meet him? Annoyed by such criticism, Plotto said that's what he should ask. What was his teacher doing here? Mr. Socrates replied that this was his little hobby, so Plotto said this was also his little hobby. Hearing Plotto's answer, Mr. Socrates immediately asked if he could ask a female streamer to work as a hobby. Plotto panicked and asked nervously how his teacher knew about that. The audience laughed happily at the interaction between the student and the teacher. They found it very funny to see a Westerner arguing in Korean. They also didn't expect Plotto to like women that much. They described Plotto, a figure of royalty and melancholy, as being very devoted to a woman. Beauty was upset and said she was very disappointed in her manager for deceiving her, even though Plotto was very famous. Seeing Beauty angry, Plotto quickly explained that it was all just an unimportant past. Now, he was a dependable queen bee. Before he finished speaking, he was hit by his teacher. Beauty asked them to stop this complicated reunion and quickly choose who should lure the undead. It was decided when we found out that your manager was my student. So Mr. Socrates, without hesitation, asked his student, Plotto, to run. Since he hated running, he would put him in temporarily. Mr. Socrates asked them to focus and memorize each map carefully. Before opening the map, Insung seemed hesitant and said he didn't know how long he could keep it open. Beauty asked this young man to calm down and just open the map. When the map was finally opened, they saw all the maps and realized that the map was very complicated. The system notified that 73 monsters were approaching within 20 seconds. This notification drove Insung crazy. He had to quickly memorize the exit doors. The system appeared again and notified that 1033 monsters were approaching within 10 seconds. The system's notification was so disturbing that Insung couldn't focus on remembering all the map details. Beauty suddenly asked Insung to close the map. Since she already remembered everything, it's better to close it now, especially since the monsters were already close to them. After Insung closed the map, she immediately asked Plotto to eat the celestial bamboo fruit. Plotto quickly ate the fruit in one gulp. Then he ran as hard as he could away from them, saying they would meet again later. Plotto realized they would beat him to a pulp if he got caught. While running from thousands of monsters, Plotho said it was very annoying and he would wait for a chance to get back at his teacher. Insung was shocked that all the monsters immediately followed Plotho, but Beauty immediately urged him to run so as not to waste any more time. They turned left or right according to Beauty's instructions. They ran as fast as they could as if they were running out of time. Finally, Insung saw the exclamation mark he saw at the end of the map. Beauty said they just needed to turn right once more, because after seeing that exclamation mark, they just had to go straight until they saw the hexagonal stone again. Then together, they jumped onto that hexagonal stone. The system emerged and indicated that it was the pathway leading to the waiting room of Dungeon 1-5. They couldn't go back after reaching that point. Insung was surprised to realize it was a waiting room and not the exit. Seeing Insung's expression, Beauty wondered and asked if she had made a mistake. Insung said that Beauty was trying to get the number 1 spot by arriving early by 1 step. Beauty immediately denied it, saying she didn't do it intentionally. With a stiff expression, Insung said that humans couldn't be trusted. But Beauty still tried to explain that she didn't do it on purpose. Insung was again surprised to realize that the bread spices he left before coming to that place were completely gone again. Beauty, who didn't understand, asked what it meant. Insung suspected that the place was symmetrical. Insung explained to Beauty that by drawing a small line on the map with their presence. Insung explained that because the map in front of them was symmetrical, the entrance and exit could be changed secretly without the participants' knowledge. Beauty was shocked and said that it was truly cheating. Insung then reminded them that it was the place they first came to. Mr. Socrates emerged from Insung's body and praised the young man, whom he thought was very clever for being able to quickly realize the maze oddity. Insung, realizing that Mr. Socrates knew everything, became annoyed because the old man didn't inform them of that information. The old man replied that he wasn't allowed to give spoilers. Mr. Socrates also said that revealing such massive spoilers was a big crime. Insung suspected that was also the reason Mr. Socrates possessed his body so that he didn't have to run. Mr. Socrates looked very innocent when he said that he hated running aimlessly. The audience laughed at the annoying and strange behavior of Ryan Socrates. Insung asked Beauty if they should run there again. Beauty replied that they could do it because she already memorized the map. However, even if they went, it would be useless if the entrance and exit were swapped again. Insung confirmed that. Suddenly, the system sounded a loud warning that they shouldn't stay in the rest area for too long. The two lovers were panicked to hear it, especially when the system said that the great epidemic was beginning to rage. Insung, confused, asked what the system meant by the great epidemic. The system added information that the moonlight was getting weaker, so the monsters would be able to move more freely, and if they wanted to survive, they had to run to the hole in the middle of the maze. Insung panicked to the point of not understanding what the system was talking about, but the system kept explaining that a powerful specter had been revived. Right at that moment, a giant undead monster appeared before them. The monster was so huge it seemed to almost block out the sky. The undead monster roared, shaking the night, creating fear for those who were now startled by its appearance. Insung cursed and asked if they wanted him to fight such a huge monster again. The audience laughed at their difficulty and said they seemed to be created to be beaten. The audience finally understood the difference in difficulty levels between intermediate and expert. Beauty urged Insung to run first. The young man asked where to run. Socrates asked if Insung hadn't heard the announcement earlier, that he had to run around the maze towards the field in the middle of the maze to survive. The old man touched Insung's shoulder and said if the young man ran again, he would hitch a ride on his body again. The audience reminded Insung to respect his elders and not to argue with Mr. Socrates, who just wanted to hitch a ride on his body. After Mr. Socrates hitched a ride, they both ran as fast as they could towards the center of the labyrinth. They ran with all their might as the undead monsters began to chase them. When they finally reached the center of the labyrinth again, they looked extremely exhausted. Insung complained, saying how exhausting it was. The young man also noticed that the moonlight seemed brighter. Insung then realized that the moon above them should be smaller, just like when they were at the entrance. Beauty also noticed this oddity. Mr. Socrates emerged from Insung's body and asked if the young man had noticed something. Insung saw the monsters and realized that they couldn't enter the central circle area. Finally, Insung understood something else. He smiled happily, realizing that out of the 10 symbols of the philosophy of longevity, the theme for this level was the moon. The audience wondered why Insung still thought there was a connection to the 10 symbols of longevity, but they were amazed because Insung's assumptions had been correct all along. Insung said the system informed them that the monsters would be able to move when the moon became weaker, and the monsters couldn't approach their area because the moonlight was very bright there. However, it wasn't the real moon. It was a fake moon whose shape wouldn't change over time. Beauty finally understood. But even so, she was amazed because although the moon's shape didn't change, its light was dimming. Go Insung concluded that it was related to the moon getting bigger. Seeing the huge monster in front of them, Beauty began to feel scared and asked Go Insung what they should do. Go Insung replied that it seemed there was no other way for them. But then Go Insung said that he seemed to have found a solution. Go Insung explained to Beauty that the moonlight coming out of the circle above them was getting weaker because of something. They could conclude that this situation was similar to a moon, like a light bulb covered by a polyester bag. So Beauty concluded that they could make the moon brighter by cutting the polyester bag. Go Insung immediately confirmed this. Suddenly, Beauty was caught by the tentacles of the largest undead monster. They both panicked, and Go Insung reached out, hoping to grab Beauty, but it was too late. Beauty tried to shoot the monster holding her body while asking to be released. Finally, the tentacle released Beauty completely, but as a result, the girl fell to the ground quite hard. Go Insung asked if she was okay, but Beauty couldn't answer anymore. The audience hoped that the girl's soul would rest peacefully. Most of the audience cursed the monster that hurt Beauty first. The audience thought that Go Insung and Beauty would die now. Go Insung thought it didn't make sense for him to kill the monster first, but he had thought of another solution. Go Insung said he would reach the moon. So this young man immediately threw his spear towards the moon with all his might. Strangely, the spear was thrown back towards him, not elsewhere. The audience speculated that the throwing force of Go Insung might be insufficient. They panicked too because the moonlight was dimming. As the audience began to despair and think about saying goodbye, Go Insung approached Mr. Socrates with a pleading face. Mr. Socrates immediately knew that Go Insung wanted him to buy the adamantine spear that had been reinforced for Go Insung. With a worshipful face, Go Insung said that only Mr. Socrates could buy the spear for him. But Mr. Socrates still said that he wasn't someone who always let go of balloons for charity. Mr. Socrates said that he would only give Go Insung some tissue balloons if the great PS could impress him with his ideas. Unfortunately, someone would die if he failed to escape from this dungeon. Go Insung was confused. He had no other way but to impress Mr. Socrates first. So, impulsively, the young man immediately threw his spear with all his might toward the big monster in front of them. The spear did manage to penetrate the monster's tentacle, but the diamond spear shattered instantly when it hit the face of the monster covered in strange cloth. The audience suspected that Go Insung would fail as the giant undead monster looked very powerful. Angry at being attacked by Go Insung, the giant monster immediately directed its tentacles to strike back at Go Insung. Fortunately, this young man managed to dodge in time. At that moment, Go Insung saw Beauty's powerful and expensive sword. Without much thought, Go Insung immediately grabbed the sword to attack the monster. With one swing of the sword, Go Insung managed to cut many of the monster's tentacles. This made the giant monster roar with anger. But this time, Go Insung didn't falter. Holding the sword handle tightly, Go Insung said that he would do his best. Go Insung now looked very focused as he activated his focus power to fight the powerful monster in front of him. Go Insung ran towards the monster, thinking that every monster surely had a weak spot, so he would stab and wound right in the monster's chest. But the monster didn't stay still. Once again, it attacked Go Insung with its tentacles. Go Insung managed to dodge the attack by jumping high enough. He also immediately slashed all the tentacles coming towards him. Go Insung thought he just needed to pass through those tentacles. But suddenly, several tentacles emerged attacking him from underground. The tentacles lifted Go Insung's body high, then threw him to the ground with great force. Go Insung grumbled inwardly because he couldn't sense the tentacles' appearance even though he was very focused. Go Insung was thrown to the ground so hard that he spat blood. After that, Go Insung's body was lifted high again and thrown to the ground. The audience began to despair and speculate that the young man wouldn't be able to hold on anymore. They thought Go Insung couldn't do anything anymore. Go Insung was thrown until he reached the side of Beauty's body. The audience saw the two lovers lying helpless together. It seemed like the perfect ending to their story. The audience began to worry because there was no movement from either of them. Meanwhile, the moonlight dimmed further, indicating their time was running out. When Go Insung's condition was critical, suddenly his heart started beating very fast because of the level 1 unyielding will skill being activated. Go Insung's body jerked, and he immediately rose again in perfect condition. All the pain from his injuries disappeared thanks to that skill. All his physical stats doubled even though only for 3 minutes. The audience was amazed to see Go Insung's resurgence. They wondered if everything would become even more interesting now. Go Insung looked at the monster in front of him and realized that even though he had gained the unyielding will ability, he still couldn't defeat the monster with just a 2x stat boost. Go Insung realized his choice now was to target the moon. As Go Insung was busy thinking, the monster's tentacles began attacking him again. Quickly, the young man slashed them until they were severed again. The monster roared in anger, but Go Insung was still busy thinking about how to hit the moon, because he realized he couldn't throw Beauty's sword. Go Insung turned to Lord Socrates, pleading for his help once again. But Lord Socrates said that Go Insung was disturbing him without reason. Hearing that, Go Insung fell to his knees. He realized he couldn't avoid death by continuing like this. In a moment of utter despair, Go Insung suddenly received a gift. He was confused and wondered who gave him the gift. When opened, it turned out Beauty gave him a gift of 1,200 balloons. This time Go Insung had 1,600 balloons. This was more than enough to buy the spear he desired. Go Insung looked towards Beauty's still weakly lying body. The girl immediately gave him a thumbs up. Then slowly Beauty got up and said they had to finish that dungeon even if they had to fight to the death. Now Go Insung only had 30 seconds until the deactivation of the unyielding will skill. He helped Beauty get up, and the girl asked for her sword back. Beauty chose to hold off the big monster so Go Insung could focus on throwing his spear. With agility, and as fast as lightning, Beauty cut off every tentacle of the monster that came towards them. After entrusting the rest to Beauty, Go Insung immediately bought the adamantine crystal reinforced spear. The spear shone golden and looked stunning. The system explained that the spear had the best quality of adamantine pearl and a 14-level attack. The spear also provided 10% destruction damage when attacking. Go Insung immediately ran towards the monster with the spear. This shocked Beauty and the audience. Go Insung kept running towards the giant monster even though the monster tried to stop him with its big arms. Go Insung managed to dodge the monster's attack and kept climbing up its body through its arms. The monster tried to catch Go Insung again with its other arms, but the young man managed to dodge and kept climbing up. After reaching the monster's shoulder, Go Insung took aim and jumped as high as he could. Then he threw his spear with all his might. Beauty now understands that Go Insung intentionally climbed the monster to reduce the distance between himself and the moon. Everyone was astonished when they finally saw the giant spear successfully impaling the moon, then creating something that covered the moon, cracked, and shattered it. Everyone present was amazed to see the moon's shell crack in the extremely bright moonlight. A confused spectator asked why there was a moon inside the moon. Another spectator explained that only its shell had been destroyed. The moon became dim because the shell was too thick. While everyone at the scene was delighted to see the moon shining brightly again, the monsters panicked, because the bright moonlight would burn them all. Meanwhile, Go Insung successfully landed safely on the ground. He then witnessed even the giant undead monster melting under the full intensity of the moonlight. Suddenly, the mystical turtle on Go Insung's shoulder screamed while staring at the giant monster. As if understanding the desire of his pet turtle, Go Insung immediately placed the mystical creature down and instructed it to consume everything it saw. The small turtle opened its mouth and slowly sucked up the remains of the giant undead monster's body. After the monster disappeared, the system appeared and announced that Go Insung had successfully cleared Dungeon 1-5. The system also announced that Go Insung's young spirit turtle had met the nutrition requirements to level up, allowing it to evolve to an advanced level. But the system would still absorb all soul essences to enhance physical statistics. Go Insung was entitled to receive the Demon Soul Stone as a reward. But the young man was stunned to realize that his soul essence would be absorbed. He realized he would still die no matter how hard he fought earlier. But the young man was happy because the fight was very exciting and enjoyable. The spectators greatly appreciated Go Insung's final battle. They couldn't wait to meet this young man in person. However, suddenly Go Insung realized something. He quickly took the celestial bamboo fruit from his inventory and chewed it. When the survival skill time finally expired, Go Insung held his chest in pain and coughed up blood. The black-haired youth fell unconscious. Beauty, Mr. Socrates, and Mr. Plato immediately approached him. Mr. Socrates examined him and realized that the young man was still alive. Not long after, Go Insung regained consciousness. He noticed his small turtle sitting quietly on his arm, healing his body all the while. Mr. Socrates immediately explained that Go Insung had been unconscious for a full day. The spectators said that if it weren't for the celestial fruit, Go Insung would have met them all already. Now they awaited Go Insung's next adventure. Mr. Socrates said it was a miracle that Go Insung could fight the giant undead, because that monster was considered elite even in advanced classes. Go Insung agreed because he also obtained soul essence from that giant monster. Go Insung then checked his inventory and realized there was a soul stone. The system explained that it was a large witch soul stone. Its class was advanced, and it contained the soul of a great wraith. Extracting its soul gave someone the chance to learn one random unique trait of the great wraith. But to activate this stone, one must have a soul extractor. Go Insung thought that the unique trait sounded like a skill. Then he asked Socrates where he could get the soul extractor. Mr. Socrates replied in the next dungeon. The spectators, who had been watching Go Insung's battle and struggle from the beginning, were increasingly eager to watch the next adventure. Go Insung begged Mr. Socrates if he could tell him a little spoiler. Mr. Socrates replied that telling Go Insung to go to a cafe and drink coffee was not considered a spoiler. Go Insung understood and carefully examined his status screen again. He realized that an evolution stone was needed to evolve, so nothing was free in this world. Then the system also explained that the young turtle was a direct descendant of the black turtle constellation, which was the god of the four directions. Insung could evolve his turtle after meeting the level upgrade requirements. Then Insung noticed that the unyielding will skill had also increased. But Insung chose not to use that skill again considering the risks were too great. Suddenly, Mr. Socrates touched Insung's shoulder and praised his good work. Insung had surprised Mr. Socrates with his complex level. Insung himself slapped his face and looked regretful as he only had one life. Insung then asked where Beauty was. He guessed Beauty must have gone to the next dungeon after clearing that dungeon. But Mr. Socrates said that the girl was still waiting for Insung at the exit. Beauty said she felt embarrassed to leave first when someone was lying unconscious. Moreover, she could only finish this dungeon with Insung's help, so she would give first place to Insung. That's the message Beauty conveyed through Mr. Socrates. Finally, Insung went to the exit and met Beauty. The girl recounted how worried she was when she saw Insung stop breathing completely at that moment. But she felt relieved after Insung finally started breathing again with the help of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Insung was immediately shocked to hear that, because that meant someone had kissed him. But then Beauty pointed to Mr. Socrates and said that the old man there was the one who performed artificial respiration for Insung. After that, Beauty asked Insung to step onto the hexagonal stone and go to the next dungeon to be the first place. Insung asked Beauty first, "Is it okay if I become the first place?" Beauty urged the young man to hurry before his thoughts changed. "Prepare to get there as soon as possible. I've been busy with my parents for a long time. I won't forgive you if you're caught fooling around again." Insung shook Beauty's hand and sincerely said he hoped to meet Beauty again on another occasion. Beauty hoped so too. After bidding farewell to Lord Plato, Insung immediately climbed the six-sided rock. Then quickly, Insung moved to dungeon 1-6, and only a total of 40 people could enter the dungeon. The system screen appeared and successfully startled Insung. Dungeon has been completed with a high level of difficulty for the first time in 1351 years. Great King Yomer congratulated you for passing the special stage. Viewers who have watched the broadcast channel will be able to get a 10% discount on subscription fees. The audience was very happy to receive such a notification. Even among them, some expressed thanks and I love you to Insung as a form of appreciation. Even Self-Reflection 469 or Lord Socrates immediately gave Insung a gift of 100 balloons. Because Insung was the first person to successfully enter dungeon 1-6, he was entitled to a reward. The young man was asked to choose between two doors in front of him. Finally, Insung chose the red door. When this young man entered the door, the system welcomed him to the Red City. Now the shop from the dungeon could only be accessed. Insung saw everything in the city was red, and it made him a little scared. Before moving, Insung put his mystical turtle into his inventory to rest first. From one of the houses in the city came out a large-bodied man. The stranger immediately cursed at Insung and ran quickly towards him. At first, Insung was surprised to see the arrival of the big, agile man. Insung could only avoid the man's attack as quickly as possible. Insung was asked to pay 10 more if he escaped. But Insung still tried to explain nicely that maybe the large fee misunderstood him. But the big man still forced Insung to fight him. Insung thought he didn't have time to fight the crazy man in front of him, so he intended to flee. While running, Insung opened a shop inside the dungeon. But all that was in the shop were some medicines like tonics, sleeping pills, or psychotherapy drugs. Insung became even more panicked and didn't know how to handle this problem. At that moment, the big man managed to catch Insung's body and threw him backward. Insung fell to the ground. The big man asked if Insung didn't remember the help he had given. Insung immediately answered, when. The big man swore that he wanted to bring a knife but instead brought a bottle. The audience became even more excited, laughing at Insung's situation. The big man kept saying that Insung owed 20 coins on his table. The big-bodied man tried to hit Insung with a bottle. Fortunately, Insung pulled out his spear just in time to stop the big bottle. Insung wondered why his expensive spear couldn't break a bottle. Meanwhile, the big-bodied man became angrier and cursed at Insung. Meanwhile, Insung kept trying to explain to the big man that he must be mistaken, as he was just a spirit. But the big man wouldn't listen and kept attacking until Insung's spear was thrown away. After that, without wasting any more time, the big man immediately hit Insung's head until the young man fainted. Then the stranger dragged Insung's body into his house. The big man chopped up vegetables and then cooked them over a blazing fire. Insung, who was dozing on the table, finally slowly opened his eyes. With a dizzy head, this young man looked around the house. At that moment, the big-bodied man came out of the kitchen and placed fried rice right in front of Insung. The big man said that Insung had to start eating 3 times a day from now on. Insung thought the big man might be crazy, because they didn't know each other, but he gave Insung food. Although he wanted to refuse, Insung's mouth watered seeing the very tempting fried rice. Insung thought to heal the strange man's mind with psychotherapy drugs available in the shop. So when they both started eating, suddenly the big-bodied man was shocked and instantly fell right onto his plate. Insung smiled as he watched the big man faint. He managed to put the sleeping potion he had previously bought from the store into the big man's food when he wasn't looking. The young man wondered how he couldn't face his parents after successfully defeating a giant undead monster. Insung looked around and realized that the place had been designed as simply as possible. He realized he had to leave the place first. But when he tried to open the door and window, everything was tightly closed. Finally, he tried to use a wooden chair to break the window, but the chair ended up breaking instead. The spectators commented that it seemed like the young man would have to stay in that place for about 2 months, feeling hopeful that this young man would face relatively easy obstacles, but in reality, he faced the most difficult challenges. Now, some spectators are trying to encourage Insung to get through the dungeon. Insung tried to contact the beauty, but this time the girl couldn't be reached. Insung was surprised and frustrated, but Insung guessed that the girl might choose the blue door. Before leaving the place, Insung grabbed a bottle and wanted to hit the big-bodied man's head. But strangely, the bottle couldn't hit the big man's body. The system appeared and informed that the clan protection had been activated. Insung was confused because this was the first time he had heard of clan protection. But he didn't give up and continued to try to hit the big man's body with the bottle of beer he held. Insung instead suspected that there might be a spell recited on the bottle. So he took a glass plate and was about to hit the big man again when suddenly the system reappeared and informed him that the plate was a soul extractor. The system informed that Insung just needed to place the soul stone on the plate and it would show his skill in extracting souls. With a wide smile, Insung quickly took the soul stone and placed the pinkish red stone on the plate. Quickly, light shone out and the soul stone was extracted. Insung was asked to check the status window. It turned out that currently, the Windows window showed the abilities of the stone. The stone turned out to have fragments of hunting instincts from high-level undead monsters. The stone can detect life force within a 5-meter radius, and when its level exceeds the limit, its attribute level will increase. Insung was confused and said that he didn't have anything special, but he wondered why the big man had a bad impression of him. Insung looked around and realized there was nothing special in the room except for a kitchen. Then he opened a room which turned out to contain so many weapons. Insung was very stiff looking at those weapons and thought that the big man must be very rich because he had everything. Insung entered the room and was notified that it was a dungeon from the village that supplied items to clan members. Insung could find many useful items there. While in the room, Insung felt like the place was his own. This young man realized that the items in the place were very useful. While browsing, Insung was shocked because there was also an adamantine spear in the room that had to be bought for 3,000 balloons. The spectators laughed seeing the spear as if it showed proof of ownership to Insung. The young man approached the spear and looked at every scratch carefully, realizing that the spear was his. Insung looked at all the weapons in the room and wondered if the top 10 had stolen all the weapons there. Insung took a wine bottle and said that his attitude couldn't be considered stealing because he just wanted to take back what was rightfully his. The spectators asked Insung to think logically first and not to immediately accuse the big man. Insung took the bottle and tried to hit the barrier glass of his spear. But in the end, the bottle was thrown back into his face. Insung fell rolling in pain. The system appeared and asked if you wanted to buy a reinforced adamantine spear. 50% discount vouchers from the village shop can be used to buy a spear for only 1,500 network balloons. Insung stood up and quickly shouted that this was very annoying. Then he thought it would be better for him to go out and see elsewhere. But his intention changed again when he saw a gem that he thought was impossible to be there. It was a mysterious amethyst gem. The gem was worth 4,000 balloons. Insung wondered how the price of that gem could be more expensive than the adamantine spear that had been reinforced. He sighed and lamented that nobody wanted to buy something as useless as that crystal. Frustrated, the youth claimed that the gem was just a piece of junk. Not far from where the gem was, Insung spotted a red gem that could enhance evolution. Surprisingly, the gem's price was only 500 balloons. Insung was thrilled because finally, he could evolve his mystical turtle. Suddenly, the system notified that the hunting instinct of another figure had been aroused, and life force was detected within range. The big man had awakened and stood directly in front of Insung, hitting him with a bottle. This injured Insung's head, rendering him unconscious. At the dining table, the big man again rudely instructed Insung to eat. If the youth refused, he would make another large plate of fried rice. Insung grumbled slightly because today's menu was the same fried rice as yesterday's. Indifferently, the big man replied that tomorrow's menu would also be fried rice. He asked Insung to get used to it because now he had to spend the rest of his time there. Insung smiled wryly at hearing this. He asked if the fried rice couldn't be made with a different variation. Before that, the youth expressed many thanks because the big man was willing to cook for him. But the big man remained angry and asked for Insung's spoon if he still refused to eat. Finally, Go Insung said that the big man didn't need to take back what he had given. Then he began to eat eagerly. While taking the rice, the youth remembered that it was the 14th day he had been trapped there. He tried to ask the big man if they couldn't eat on separate plates like before. The big man immediately called Go Insung a naughty child, saying he would surely use sleeping pills again. But Go Insung tried to smile and deny it. After the meal, Go Insung tried to offer help with washing the dishes. But the big man insisted that the kitchen was his responsibility. Finally, the big man threw the dirty cloth and asked Go Insung to just mop the floor. While mopping the floor, the youth received information that some participants had also entered Dungeons 1-6. He concluded that there were already 5 people in Dungeon 1-6, so he didn't need to hurry. Go Insung offered to cook dinner, but the big man still refused, insisting that the kitchen was his responsibility. Finally, Go Insung could only sit quietly in the old chair in the living room. The youth pondered on how to open the door like the big man had been doing all this time. He remembered the door handle had to be turned left, then right, before pulling it down. He thought the blue village would be one of the symbols of longevity, but what he chose now was the red village. He was sure a dungeon couldn't have 2 themes, so he believed the clues must be in those 2 villages, the red village and the blue village. As Go Insung contemplated the red and blue villages, he finally concluded that red and blue, when combined, would become purple. The youth still remembered the amethyst crystal in the big man's weapon room was also purple. Go Insung thought he should remain calm because, after all, he could only know the truth about the amethyst crystal after buying it. But before that, he needed to confirm something first. At night, Go Insung entered the kitchen and called the big man, who was the chef. As usual, the big man was always angry with anything said by Go Insung. But Go Insung didn't care and still asked if the big man knew about the clan of protectors. The big man was surprised and immediately asked how Go Insung knew about that word. Go Insung answered that when he gave the big man a sleeping pill, the big man unconsciously mentioned the protector clan. The big man cursed and said they wanted to take him to their grave. Go Insung casually said that in reality, the big man was still alive until now. So Go Insung asked what the protector clan was. The big man said that the clan was a sad legend from the village. Go Insung asked what legend it was. The big man said that he didn't believe in legends. The big man spoke while continuing to fry the rice. Finally, when the fried rice was cooked, he told Go Insung to eat it immediately. Go Insung tried to make small talk by asking what kind of fried rice was served this time. The big man only answered that Go Insung had to eat whatever he gave. But Go Insung invited the big man to eat first. Even so, the big man refused and told Go Insung to eat first. Go Insung knew the big man must be worried. He drugged his food again. Even the big man told Go Insung to eat while shaking a bottle of wine in front of him, as if threatening Go Insung to eat first. As Go Insung ate, finally, the big man ate too. But just as the big man took a spoonful, he fainted and another one right on his plate. From the kitchen, a small turtle pet of Go Insung came out and was welcomed by the owner happily. It turned out the small turtle had put the sleeping drug in the fried rice. Seeing this, the audience was amazed and asked how could Go Insung not fall asleep when they ate from the same plate. Go Insung showed a bottle containing a tonic potion that kept him awake for 24 hours after consuming it. After that, Go Insung went into the storage room of the big man's weapons. Go Insung thought that he had to buy the amethyst gemstone immediately to always find a way out of that place. But before that, he wanted to buy one more item. Of course, that was the evolution gemstone that he would give to his pet turtle. Holding the red gemstone, this young man thought he would use these items later because the old man might wake up anytime. But as Go Insung headed towards the amethyst gemstone, he was rendered helpless because the gemstone was no longer there. He became confused and wondered where the gemstone could be. Go Insung suspected that the big man must have hidden it, but the crystal quickly reappeared. Before buying the crystal, this young man thought if the amethyst crystal turned out not to be the intended item to escape, then the audience could leave and everything would end. Meanwhile, Go Insung had to eat the fried rice forever. The system appeared and asked if Go Insung wanted to buy the amethyst gemstone. The crystal could now be bought with only 2,000 gallons plus additional discount coupons from the store. Go Insung rejected the system's offer and insisted that the gemstone in front of him was genuine and he believed in that gemstone. So after finding the gemstone, he took it and intended to take it away and use it later. The audience urged this young man to hurry because the big man could wake up at any moment. Before leaving the room, Go Insung still searched for something to use with the gemstone. But there were no clues, so this young man tried to shake the gemstone or even pull it out. But the gemstone didn't budge at all. Instead, from the dining table, the groan of the big man, who seemed almost conscious, could be heard. Go Insung said he was surprised, but his face looked weary and he had no intention of fleeing. This young man thought there was nothing else he could get in the store, until he found a hidden knot in the list of items sold at the store. Go Insung saw it as a secret code and several numbers, so he immediately rotated the gemstone left and right. At that moment, the big man woke up. Of course, he was angry because Go Insung took the amethyst gemstone. In such a desperate situation, Go Insung still tried to rotate the gemstone again, this time in the opposite direction. While trying to avoid the big man's blows, Go Insung continued to rotate the purple gemstone in his grasp. Even though the young man's body was kicked by the big man's foot, and his body was thrown far, Go Insung still tried to rotate the gemstone according to the instructions he received. The big man stepped closer to Go Insung, and with a terrified face, he said that Go Insung had to stay there and eat fried rice forever. Go Insung shivered and was very scared to hear that. But the system suddenly appeared and said that the path to Dungeon 1-7 was open. Suddenly the hexagonal stone under Go Insung's body shone, and the young man thanked everyone for their food. The audience laughed seeing how funny this young man was finally able to escape from Dungeon 1-6. As Go Insung left, the big man looked sad because now he had to be alone again. But he became enthusiastic when another participant managed to enter Dungeon 1-6. Of course, as before, the big man would welcome every participant who came with enthusiasm and anger so he wouldn't feel lonely. Press the explanation button on the hologram screen to understand that Dungeon 1-7 harbored a sleeping monster behind another door in the room. Go Insung would need strength and courage to escape from that dungeon. Go Insung pondered the notification carefully. He contemplated the possibility of battling one-on-one with another monster. So, he decided to exercise using the equipment to enhance his strength. While inspecting the equipment in the place, Go Insung thought that the place resembled a fully equipped prison camp. They even provided supplements. First, Go Insung opened a gift box to reveal a random skill. This skill instantly cleaned his body without the need for a shower. The audience was already accustomed to this sight and they seemed to feel refreshed watching Go Insung's face transform into a healthier appearance due to that random skill. The weapon rating for this random skill was normal. This ability could enhance the strength of a weapon equipped with successive attack power by 12 times. The skill's value would increase if its level exceeded the maximum limit. Go Insung thought that the skill was quite good too. Next, Go Insung took out his small turtle. Then, he gave a red evolution gem to the little turtle. Before his turtle evolved, Go Insung was asked to choose attributes for it. Go Insung had to think carefully because he couldn't afford to make a wrong decision. Eventually, the young man chose the water attribute. The red gem quickly glowed, and the system informed that the small turtle would evolve from normal to an advanced level. The system reminded us that the evolution could revert to the normal level if it ran out of energy, and the same evolution could not be used for the next evolution. Not long after, Go Insung's turtle was enveloped in light, and then quickly, his small turtle transformed into a quite large turtle. The young man wondered if his turtle would shrink again after this evolution. Now that the turtle had evolved, it transformed into a blue turtle. The system informed that the turtle had an additional skill called the Wave of Life. The turtle could easily manipulate water from living parts of its body. It could also summon holy water and use it as a weapon. Go Insung looked pleased as his young turtle had now become larger. The audience assessed that the turtle now looked like one of the creatures from Pokémon. They wondered why Go Insung chose the water attribute, making the turtle look more ridiculous now. Go Insung responded to the audience's statement that there was no specific reason why he chose the water attribute, but he thought it was the most suitable attribute for the turtle. After successfully evolving his turtle, Go Insung put his mystical creature back into his inventory. As the young man prepared for exercise, he suddenly received a message from a player named BJ Linny. The mysterious girl said that she had been watching Go Insung since he first entered the place. She also claimed to be from the Blood Clan, which was a guild recognized by Lord Hades, the figure behind the Styx River TV. Go Insung was surprised to hear about the guild. The woman explained that they could only send messages like that to Go Insung because he chose the Red Village under their administration. The Red Village belonged to the Blood Clan. That's why the notification mentioned the clan's blessing. Then, the mysterious woman also explained that the Blood Clan and all other guilds were thinking of escaping from the dungeon. So, they invited Go Insung to join them, and he could answer all those questions whenever he wanted. Hearing the woman's explanation, Go Insung thought about leaving the dungeon after reaching levels 1-10. Before that, the young man announced to his audience that he had just received an invitation from the Blood Clan. He asked his audience if the Blood Clan was a fairly large alliance. The audience was shocked to hear that the young man had been contacted by a member of the Blood Clan. Meanwhile, Beauty had just entered the Blue Village. Go Insung decided he would think about the offer later because he needed to think about what he needed for now. That was to escape from Dungeon 1-7. The young man approached the door and felt the detected life force nearby. With half of his undead soul, the young man could sense a great hunting instinct around him. Now he was sure there was a monster behind that door. The system appeared and informed that a weak manticore was currently sleeping. So, did Go Insung want to enter now? The young man could return to the resting room after being inside for 5 minutes. Go Insung finally decided that he wanted to enter the door. Quickly, the hexagonal floor beneath his feet lit up, and he moved to the other side of the room. Instantly, the young man was surprised to see a very large lion-like monster fast asleep right in front of him. Go Insung finally understood that this was the creature called the manticore. The audience laughed at the recklessness of this young man who always acted rashly before carefully considering his actions. Go Insung immediately opened the shop to see what equipment he could use to fight the monster. Go Insung looked frustrated when he saw only a regular crystal spear. The young man wished he still had his reinforced adamantine spear. Nevertheless, in the end, he still took the low spear because it was the only weapon he had to defend himself. Then, Go Insung slowly walked past the monster when suddenly its nose twitched and it spat saliva from its mouth. The audience exclaimed in disgust as they saw Go Insung's entire face being hit by the manticore's saliva. After spitting, the manticore fell back asleep. Go Insung immediately increased his focus strength to be calmer. Now he felt lighter in his head and no longer worried about moving. The young man looked around and realized that weeds had already grown on the ground. The grass grew because the gladiator arena was ancient and there were water droplets from above. But strangely, the temperature in that place was quite cold. Suddenly, Go Insung decided that he didn't want to make any moves right now and would come back after 2 minutes with a more mature plan. The audience was disappointed and began to leave Go Insung's channel. This young man was even shocked because some viewers were even forcing themselves out of his live channel. Others explained that because they had been watching Go Insung's live for too long, their channels seemed forced to always be connected to Go Insung's channel. So if they wanted to leave, they had to force it. Then suddenly, a figure with the nickname Biolini joined to watch Go Insung's channel. Before he could recover from his surprise, the system suddenly gave an emergency alarm. Go Insung immediately knew that the manticore monster behind him must have woken up. Sure enough, when this young man looked back, the monster immediately opened its mouth wide. It seemed like the fight between them couldn't be avoided now. The manticore monster immediately attacked Go Insung with its sharp claws. Fortunately, this young man managed to dodge in time. Go Insung cursed and called the monster a terrifying dog. As the young man was pressed, Biolini leaned in and cheered him on. The manticore continued to try to attack Go Insung with its large arms. This young man even struggled to avoid it. Unfortunately, he couldn't leave the room before his remaining time of 1 minute ran out. Go Insung could only keep running to save his life. At this point, Go Insung thought that running was very boring. This young man decided to look for a gap and make a quick turn. That way, he could see a gap in the monster's abdomen. Go Insung immediately transformed his spear into a sword and thought that he was the only one who had destroyed the moon, so he was determined to defeat the monster too. But what this young man didn't expect was that the manticore's armor was too strong for his spear. Because his attack was ineffective, the manticore monster was enraged at being played like that. So in a flash, the monster wounded Go Insung's body and easily threw him aside. Go Insung's body was thrown several meters away, and at several points it emitted quite a lot of blood drops. This young man looked weak and wondered what to do now. At a time like this, he should flee immediately. But finally, the system appeared and asked if 5 minutes had passed. Did Go Insung want to return to the waiting room now? Quickly, this young man answered, of course. Right at that moment, he was teleported before the manticore's sharp claws could further injure him. In the waiting room, Go Insung looked exhausted and weak. The system appeared and informed that Go Insung had failed the first attempt. The system also warned that the weakened manticore would soon regain its health after waking up. Go Insung was shocked to hear that. He concluded that he couldn't win against such an extraordinary monster. Even in a weakened state, the monster was very difficult to defeat, let alone when it had fully recovered. As usual, at times like this, the audience laughed at Go Insung's unfortunate situation. They mocked Go Insung, who must be wanting to cry now. Ignoring the audience's harsh comments, Go Insung seemed to be deep in thought. Earlier, he had seen a rough layout of the room, and it seemed like he had seen the exit door. But for now, Go Insung summoned the mystical turtle from his inventory and asked the cute creature for help in healing his wounds. The audience commented that the turtle was a little unfair to Go Insung's game. Seeing Go Insung injured, Biolini continued to give him 100 balloons while offering words of encouragement. Even the mysterious woman continued to give balloons, much to the surprise of other viewers. Go Insung was delighted to receive so many gifts. This young man even prostrated himself to express his gratitude to the person named Biolini. The audience commented that the Blood Clan was showing off their wealth, and according to the audience, it was a monopoly of a well-developed union. To further enliven the atmosphere, Biolini continued to give 100 balloons, saying that everyone was welcome to watch the broadcast, and she would continue to liven up the atmosphere by releasing 1,000 balloons. Go Insung was surprised by Biolini's attitude. This young man thought that strange things were suddenly happening. Initially, Mr. Socrates was considered the #1 fan of Go Insung. Mr. Socrates suddenly appeared and gave 100 balloons while commenting that someone had been talking nonsense behind his back. Biolini gave 100 balloons while asking if Mr. Socrates was his manager, but was he sure he was Go Insung's biggest fan? Mr. Socrates gave 100 balloons while saying that he was the biggest supporter until today since Go Insung was still a newbie. Lenny gave Go Insung another 100 balloons while saying that Mr. Socrates shouldn't overspend because of his very poor economic situation right now, and it would only embarrass Mr. Socrates himself. Go Insung was shocked to hear the conversation between the two of them. Not wanting to be considered bankrupt, Mr. Socrates immediately gave 100 balloons to Go Insung, saying that he was the #1 fan who never worried about paying anything. Even the beginner system said if Mr. Socrates was Go Insung's biggest fan. Go Insung immediately bowed and thanked both of them very much for giving him many gifts. This young man promised he would be the best and he would give his best. The system appeared and informed that all of these young men's stats increased by 1%. Go Insung was very happy to hear that. His whole body suddenly emitted a strong yellow light and made him feel refreshed. As all of his stats had now increased, Go Insung immediately used his time to exercise with quite heavy weights. Even though all the muscles in his arms and body were turning, the young man didn't give up and continued exercising. The spectators even began to think that the young man was starting to become obsessed with exercise. When he felt his body could no longer bear to lift that much weight, Go Insung slowly put down the weight he had been carrying. Then he drank a protein-enhancing liquid that made him feel refreshed. Lenny immediately gave this young man 50 balloons and praised Go Insung for his quite intense workout today. Go Insung thanked the woman and then, with a confident smile, said it was time to go back into the lion's den. Before that, Go Insung stared at his reflection in the mirror and thought that he would enter with a well-thought-out plan. First, he had built muscle strength by exercising and eating protein. Second, he would attract the manticore's attention by throwing high-quality bait. Then thirdly, he would use the exit door on the other side of the arena. But this young man felt very surprised when he saw a shovel in the shop. When the time came, the system finally asked if Go Insung wanted to enter the lion's den now. With confidence, the young man answered yes. Now he was facing the manticore monster ready to fight him. Facing the large monster staring at him with full anger still made Go Insung scared even though he had a well-thought-out plan. Without hesitation, the giant tiger monster immediately attacked Go Insung. This time, the young man with black hair quickly grabbed some high-quality food and threw it to the other side of the manticore monster. The presumed cancer of the monster immediately turned and enjoyed its snack with great focus. The spectators even laughed at the antics of the large lion-like monster. One of the spectators mentioned that the high-quality food was from the store for a reason, apparently because the manticore monster liked that type of food. As the monster's attention was diverted, Go Insung slowly walked past the monster and planned to run toward the exit door, which was now visible in front of him. But suddenly, the monster turned with a vigilant stance. Go Insung immediately froze in place. The young man hoped the monster would just keep eating and stop watching him like that. When the monster finally resumed eating, Go Insung could breathe a sigh of relief. Go Insung speculated that being a few meters away from the exit door changed the monster's eating speed. Furious, Go Insung tried to take a step again, causing the manticore monster to growl at him. His suspicions were confirmed. The monster would go berserk when he kept a certain distance from it in the exit door. But he decided not to dwell on that and just ran towards the exit door. As a result, the manticore monster chased him again and attacked his back with sharp claws. Go Insung jumped into the exit door with his back injured. He then realized he would die if he was even a little late. When he settled in the room, he was surprised to find no door inside. This meant he failed to find the exit. The spectators commented that if Go Insung couldn't escape from there, then no one could. Meanwhile, behind him, the manticore monster continued to watch with its terrifying eyes. Go Insung chuckled and mocked the monster because it couldn't enter the room with a narrow door. Go Insung summoned his mystical turtle again to help heal his wounds. But suddenly, the manticore monster spewed fire from its mouth, causing Go Insung to dodge to the side. Go Insung cursed inwardly because he had just found out that the manticore monster could breathe fire. Go Insung was startled to realize that his hair was on fire. Princess and others rushed to help extinguish the fire on his head. In such a desperate situation, the manticore monster wanted to attack him again with its fire breath. Fortunately, this time Go Insung acted quickly by throwing several handfuls of high-quality food into the monster's mouth. This calmed the monster down again and made it focus on its food. Go Insung immediately asked his mystical turtle to evolve again so it could use its water element to help him extinguish the fire on his head. Fortunately, the cute turtle quickly took action and put out the fire under Go Insung. Although Go Insung's head was saved, his hair was burnt to a crisp, leaving him bald. His large body trembled, and he slumped against the wall. Now he had to be very careful to pass the manticore monster again and return to the waiting room. Every time the monster looked at him, Go Insung would quickly throw high-quality food to prevent further attacks. Now, Go Insung stood in front of the mirror in the waiting room. This adult man cried because of his lost hair. While other spectators mocked him for being bald, Mr. Socrates suddenly commented that it didn't mean there was no way to get his hair back. Go Insung immediately asked if there was a way to restore his hair. Giving him 10 balloons, Mr. Socrates replied that the young man only needed to return to Dungeon 1-2 to buy a booster. Go Insung sweated even more in frustration upon hearing that. He thought everything was over now. Every time he touched his bald and sore head, he would scream in frustration. Go Insung sat on the floor for a long time until his sadness began to diminish. He said that this dungeon was really difficult. The system also informed him that after the first failure, the manticore monster would become stronger. And it turned out to be true. The monster became more formidable than before. But then he noticed some small details like the cracked ground in the arena and the dead wild grass. Go Insung wondered if the manticore monster was still the same. Go Insung leaned against the wall resignedly, saying that because he didn't understand his situation, it would only get harder. Miss Lenny kept giving Go Insung balloons while reminding him that he still had the amethyst crystal. Go Insung looked puzzled at Miss Lenny's comment. So Miss Lenny explained that the amethyst crystal had blessings from their clan. So Go Insung just needed high focus to activate it. Go Insung immediately took the gemstone from his inventory and tried to focus on it. Finally, the amethyst stone gave him health and made him calmer. Now, Go Insung's heart felt healthier and calmer thanks to the amethyst gem. Because of this, Go Insung immediately went to the teleportation stone, and the system asked if he wanted to enter the manticore arena again. Even the spectators were surprised to see how quickly this young man's attitude changed. According to them, the power of the amethyst gem was extraordinary. After entering the arena and facing the manticore monster again, Go Insung said he would finish the fight now and forever. Before that, he took high-quality food from his inventory and asked the creature to focus only on its food. Unfortunately, Go Insung couldn't take any food because he had used it all. When he wanted to buy more high-quality food, the system suddenly said that the store couldn't be accessed when someone was inside the arena. Go Insung's face paled in panic. Thus ended the saga of this young man. Go Insung had no choice but to keep fleeing from the rampaging monster. He kept jumping every time the monster tried to grab him with its sharp and large claws. Sweat poured down his face. Go Insung, who was already tired, continued to run. Just as he managed to escape from the monster's claws, the young man had to face the fire breath of the manticore monster. Go Insung tried to survive by lying low, but it wasn't efficient enough due to the vast space. So, he started running again while shouting that he just wanted to do research. In his heart, the young man wondered if he could survive in 5 minutes if the situation continued like this. While running, suddenly the system appeared and notified that the instinct to hunt for something big had been activated. Go Insung was surprised because his hunting instinct suddenly activated. He realized that the hunting instinct was only active when life force was detected within a 5-meter radius around the host. But before the young man could investigate further, he had to evade again from the manticore monster's fiery breath. Go Insung kept dodging and running as fast as he could. Even the spectators were surprised by his speed. Finally, the system appeared and asked if the 5-minute time in the arena was up, so did Go Insung want to return to the waiting room. Quickly, Go Insung begged to be returned immediately. Fortunately, the young man was successfully teleported back to the waiting room before he was attacked by the fast and poisonous tail of the manticore. Go Insung's breath was heavy, but he was relieved. Finally, he escaped death again. He finally found another clue. So, the young man immediately used the amethyst crystal to restore his physical condition first. Then he ate something substantial and took enough rest time. After waking up, the young man didn't forget to buy plenty of high-quality food for the manticore monster. The young man realized that his very strong and heightened instinct successfully detected the last fairly high life force. So, before entering the arena, the young man prepared with a shovel in his hand and thought that there was something else in the arena besides the manticore monster, and he had to go back there to find it. When Go Insung appeared, the manticore monster immediately charged at him. Fortunately, this time Go Insung was prepared. He immediately threw high-quality food and ordered the monster to eat it. Without waiting to be told again, the legendary monster immediately focused on enjoying its food, ignoring Go Insung, who was busy searching for the life energy he detected yesterday. When he finally stood in the right place, the system notified again that his hunting instinct was active again. Without wasting any more time, Go Insung quickly dug the ground beneath him. While digging, Go Insung thought there must be a reason why the shop sold shovels, and he was sure the answer must be underground. The young man also realized that the weeds were withering while the soil looked very barren. When he felt the monster's food was gone, Go Insung immediately threw some more high-quality food at the manticore so it wouldn't have time to attack him. The spectators even laughed at how naive the manticore monster's behavior was. Go Insung kept digging as hard and as fast as he could. Every time his time ran out and he was sent back to the waiting room, the young man would enjoy his time drinking and eating to replenish his energy. It didn't feel like 3 days had passed since he started digging. The manticore monster didn't care about his activity because it moved underground. Now, it was 5 meters, and Go Insung started to look tired. He just realized that the 5-meter distance was wider than he thought. Nevertheless, the young man didn't give up and continued to try to dig into the ground. Finally, he was surprised to see something under the pile of soil. It looked like a pink flower protected by a very thick glass container. The system explained that it was an eternal herbal plant. The plant had a rare class and could absorb life energy from its surrounding environment to prolong its own life. The plant would absorb energy from nearby targets faster, causing the target to lose life energy and age. The system warned the young man not to touch it. Insung was astonished to read the notification that it was an eternal plant. But when the young man touched the flower, instantly dim light came out of it, startling Insung, so he threw the flower to the ground. He realized that his hand suddenly wrinkled like an old person's hand. Quickly, Insung took an amethyst stone from his inventory to help prepare his hand as if it were poison. At this moment, suddenly the system announced that someone with the nickname BJ Hubbard had entered Dungeon 1-7. Insung was surprised to hear that nickname wasn't Beauty, considering Beauty had always been in second place. The young man had never heard that name among the top participants before. The audience laughed at the new name. They suspected that BJ Hubbard would become Insung's second general. Insung thought to greet him, so he sent a message to BJ Hubbard. Meanwhile, in his room, a man wearing a toga hat calmly entered the waiting room in Dungeon 1-7. He said it was time to become stronger. The man suddenly smiled mysteriously when reading the message from Insung. BJ Hubbard suddenly congratulated Insung on his graduation. The stranger even called himself a great general and said he accepted Insung as his disciple, and asked if the meeting ceremony would be held on March 2nd. Insung was surprised and thought that the person was strange, especially considering he had never asked to be the person's disciple before, just by looking at some of their chat messages. Insung suspected that BJ Hubbard might have gone crazy after being pranked by the old man in Dungeon 1-6. Insung's audience said BJ Hubbard was crazy. That's why he only had 15 followers on his livestream. BJ Hubbard suddenly told Insung to come to school if there was anything he wanted to ask. Insung decided he had to stop the conversation to stop wasting his time. Meanwhile, in his room, BJ Hubbard thought that the person who just talked to him was very shy. He began to think seriously now. Insung received another 100 balloons from BJ Lenny because it would surely be difficult to find that perennial plant. While staring at the flower lying on the ground, Insung wondered if the plant was very rare and valuable. The audience urged this young man to sell the plant because it was very rare and had many uses. They were confident that the plant would sell at a high price. Insung then remembered the theme of longevity philosophy and speculated that the theme of Dungeons 1-7 was the elixir of immortality. Insung looked at the flower and was certain that the flower would be very useful for his current situation. So, the young man put the amethyst crystal into his pants pocket as a grip. Then he took the flower, removing it from the protective glass. Insung immediately felt a very strong spiritual energy from the flower. He was grateful that the amethyst crystal could stop the aging effects of the flower. Insung then tore his shirt and climbed to the surface with the mystical turtle on his head. Upon reaching the arena surface, Insung was surprised not to see the presence of the manticore. But suddenly his instincts became active as he felt the urge to kill. Quickly, he turned around, pointing his spear, which was coated with the perennial flower. Strangely, the manticore monster immediately stopped moving when it saw the flower at the tip of the spear. Insung smiled and warned the monster to be careful with the highly poisonous perennial herbal plant. The young man now understood all the enhancements of the manticore monster's strength, knowing that its various failures were surely influenced by the energy absorbed from that perennial plant. The manticore monster did not lose its mind. It tried to attack Insung with its fiery breath. But quickly, the young man instructed his mystical turtle to fight the fire with water. Even the fire element from the mystical turtle was stronger, capable of extinguishing the manticore monster's fire even up to its mouth. The audience cheered excitedly as if they were watching a Pokémon battle live. Insung continued to add a skill that increased focus to see more clearly the reason behind the slow warnings of the manticore monster, not because of tooth decay, but because it had undergone inflammation. After his focus was gathered and with full strength, Insung immediately threw the spear containing the herbal flower right into the manticore monster's mouth. With such an attack, in just a few seconds, the entire body of the manticore monster was crushed, leaving only bones behind. Then Insung stepped forward to retrieve his spear. At this moment, Insung's body automatically absorbed the essence of the manticore's soul. Thus, his physical statistics immediately increased after absorbing the soul essence of the manticore monster. Insung smiled happily. Then one of the manticore's claws fell at Insung's feet. The young man picked it up, and the system explained that it was the weakened manticore monster's toe bone. The bone had an advanced class and was known as an item that was quite sturdy yet lightweight to carry, so he would keep the bone. Insung looked at his status window and realized that his skill level had also increased. His spear had also leveled up to level 2, and his focus strength also increased to level 4. The way out of Dungeon 17 was finally open. Insung stood in front of the door full of energy. He smiled and slowly stepped into the next dungeon. The system announced again that this young man was the first person to enter Dungeon 1-8. Therefore, he was entitled to receive a special prize in the form of an F-rank skill book. Only 29 participants can enter this dungeon now. Insung smiled happily because once again he occupied the first place. The young man thought it was because he was very great and talented. The young man laughed heartily until suddenly he fell and saw a herd of deer in front of him. Insung sat in the room, staring at the hologram screen in front of him. The system explained that the challenge for this dungeon was to keep 6 deer alive from the epidemic, and the hexagonal portal would only reopen after this dungeon mission was completed. Insung was confused. He looked at the deer and realized that there were about 20 deer in the room. Insung guessed that they were the deer that symbolized the commanders among the 10 symbols of longevity, and he realized the hexagonal portal would only reappear after 6 days. But this young man was very surprised because the deer kept rubbing their heads against his body. Insung tried to ask the deer to stop gently while stroking their heads. But suddenly, one of the deer kicked Insung's vital point and made him fall in pain. In such pain, Insung thought he would lose everything. Insung tried to speak to the deer carefully so they could understand each other, but the deer turned away from Insung. This young man was more confused. One of Insung's audience members suggested that maybe the deer were avoiding him because he still had the disgusting scent of a manticore. So the audience asked Insung to take a bath. Insung panicked at the thought that his audience wanted him to be naked and bathe in front of them. But then one of the audience members said that the young man could stop the live streaming and take a quick bath. Insung was in agony knowing that there was a facility allowing him to stop the live streaming. His audience laughed even more at Insung's need, knowing he hadn't bathed since entering the dungeon. Insung finally stopped the live streaming and asked for the help of his spirit turtle to shower him with water. Insung felt very refreshed and thought he had chosen the perfect water element to help him. After cleaning himself and putting on clothes, Insung resumed the live streaming. He greeted his audience very cheerfully. After bathing, Insung tried to call the deer again. After smelling Insung's fresh body scent, the deer slowly approached him and liked to stick to him. After seeing the deer up close, Insung realized that some of the deer looked very sad. Insung began to smell an unpleasant odor from the deer. This young man realized he could only smell the scent of the deer after cleaning his own body. Insung stroked the deer's body and realized that they were swollen. As this young man moved from one deer to another, he also found other deer had swelling on their bodies. Insung thought it seemed to be the epidemic mentioned earlier. It seemed they wanted Insung to keep the deer alive by curing the epidemic. The problem now was that there were only 4 days left of the challenge. The audience laughed at Insung, who once again faced greater difficulties than others. Insung realized that the difficulty level of the dungeon had increased since he arrived there. Insung decided to shop and find something he could use to treat the deer. In the shop, there was an epidemic medicine costing 50 balloons. Also, some food for herbivores. At the moment, Insung has 2405 balloons. Would Insung be able to save all the deer? After thinking for a while, this young man finally decided that he would buy medicine to cure the deer epidemic first. Insung bought a bottle of medicine and poured it on the swellings on the deer's body. In a short time, the quite large swelling disappeared. Insung smiled happily realizing his efforts had paid off. But this young man was puzzled again when he realized that he had used the entire bottle to cure one swelling on a deer's body. Insung sat on the floor and rested his chin on his hand. He looked worried when he thought he would have to lose all the gift balloons he had to cure the deer. Insung thought the cost of treating one deer consumed 50 balloons, and each of them had 2 swellings, so all the balloons collected would be in vain. The audience began to ask if the young man would not take care of his deer. They mocked Insung as a poor figure because he couldn't buy medicine for the deer. But Insung stood up again and optimistically thought that he had to increase the number of viewers first to raise ratings and get rewards. The system explained that if this young man wanted to get double recommendations, he had to pay 100 balloons. But streaming recommendations could be doubled in just 10 minutes. Currently, Insung has received 947 recommendations. He needed 1,000 recommendations to increase the rating of his live streaming channel. With the increase in his live streaming rating, the number of recommendations would double for 10 minutes. So Insung immediately prostrated himself in front of the camera and begged the audience to recommend him. The audience certainly didn't want to do it for free, so they asked Insung to make some jokes. Insung immediately pretended to be a weak, soft-spoken woman. Insung told a story about when he was still alive. There was a junior girl who was close to him and told him that she had just gone on a blind date. Insung asked how it went. The girl replied that if the man studied medicine and drove a Ford X, Go Insung was very surprised to hear that there was a student who could drive such an expensive car as a Ford X, but suddenly, with an embarrassed face, Go Insung acted out when the girl said that she made a blind mistake with 2 different people on the same day. Go Insung immediately pretended to be surprised to hear that. The show made by Go Insung successfully entertained his audience. Go Insung received some balloons from his loyal viewers. Even some of Go Insung's viewers immediately recommended his channel twice. The system appeared and informed that Go Insung's recommendation score had reached more than 1,000, so his channel automatically rose. Go Insung cheered happily because he succeeded in raising the recommendation to 1,000 points. So Go Insung was entitled to get an increase in recommendations to the maximum limit. Now, Go Insung had an additional 25 more viewers in his live streaming. Go Insung was genuinely ecstatic, cheering with joy. The system reminded him to boost his BJ ranking again to increase his audience limit further. Realizing that many people had joined to watch his live stream, Go Insung immediately bowed and welcomed some of his new viewers. Some recognized Go Insung as the one who had held the first position 5 consecutive times. They thought it was remarkable. However, some viewers thought that the owner of the nickname Save Me was bad. Go Insung then explained to his audience that he was in Dungeon 1-8 and had a mission to save 6 deer within 6 days. He took out immortal herb plants and amethyst gems from his inventory, surprising and impressing his viewers. Go Insung then placed the amethyst gem on the deer's head and the immortal herb plant on its body. Suddenly, the wind appeared, lifting the deer's body into the air. The viewers were amazed to see the swelling on the deer's body disappear. The viewers were shocked to see Go Insung heal the deer so quickly. As a result, he gained some new fans who loved him dearly for his abilities. Proudly, Go Insung stated that this was his true ability. However, one viewer noticed that the deer looked angry, so they asked if the deer wouldn't die due to aging. With a light smile, Go Insung replied that the dungeon meant nothing to him. On the second day, Go Insung woke up very cheerful because he felt very refreshed. He asked all his deer to start attendance. The viewers laughed at Go Insung's antics. He counted and realized that only 13 deer were still standing. So, he looked to the other side of the room and found 2 deer already dead. Go Insung was shocked, saying he hoped they could have lasted longer. Go Insung checked his deer's bodies and realized he needed to care for them again. First, he sprinkled his medicine on the deer with many swellings. The others would be healed by attaching herbal plants and amethyst crystals. On the 3rd day, Go Insung was shocked to see 1 more deer dead. He had carefully checked and was very sure that the deer had no swellings on its body. Looking around, he saw 3 other deer lying weakly. Panicking, he approached the deer to find that they no longer had swellings. Go Insung began to suspect that someone else had entered his room while he slept at night. So, Go Insung decided to stay awake all night. The next day, he looked very tired. Go Insung even immediately prevented a deer from trying to stand and move out of his sight. The viewers laughed at Go Insung's physically exhausted condition. His face was grim, and his eyes were red from lack of sleep all night. On the 5th day, Go Insung managed to hold on after 2 days without sleep, but he looked worn out. The deer started to approach him as if asking for something. He understood that the deer wanted food from him. So, Go Insung immediately took out food from his inventory and allowed the deer to eat. Go Insung's body trembled greatly because he was exhausted and desperately wanted to sleep. But he realized that if he slept, he would lose. Go Insung was relieved that no deer had died after he stayed awake for 2 days and 2 nights. Unable to prevent it, drowsiness overwhelmed him, and Go Insung finally fell asleep. The viewers laughed at him for still being able to sleep while on a mission. But suddenly, the system appeared announcing that BJ Hubbard had managed to enter Dungeon 1-8 and took 2nd place again. Go Insung was shocked to hear the announcement and immediately sent a message to BJ Hubbard. Honestly, Go Insung admitted that he didn't expect BJ Hubbard to quickly advance to Dungeon 1-8. BJ Hubbard replied to Go Insung's message, saying that his student with the nickname Please Save was indeed very diligent. So, he had to fight immediately to continue advancing to the next level. Go Insung was annoyed because he kept being called a student by that strange person. Go Insung wondered how that kid could quickly pass through Dungeon 1-7. And how could other players pass their tests? Out of curiosity, Go Insung tried asking that strange person how he managed to pass Dungeon 1-7. BJ Hubbard replied that he just tried to seriously understand the instruction book. Go Insung was irritated by the strange man's answer, but his attention had to be diverted when he heard one of his deer groaning in pain. Go Insung immediately approached the deer with a worried look. But at that moment, Go Insung noticed something strange about his other deer. The deer had very sharp horns. It rubbed its horns against another deer, causing the second deer to groan in pain and fall with blood in its mouth. Go Insung was shocked and angry to see his deer die from the attack of that strange deer. So, he immediately caught the strange deer and stared at it intently. Go Insung just realized that the creature was not a deer but a goat. He wondered why there was a goat in the dungeon. However, Go Insung realized that the goat was the reason his deer died. So, without hesitation, he took his weapon and stabbed the goat. He felt grateful because he still had 7 deer left after killing that goat. Strangely, after being wounded by Go Insung, the goat ran quickly toward the hexagonal portal and died on it. Go Insung apologized because he had to kill the goat. But then one of his viewers reminded him to immediately remove the goat's carcass. So, Go Insung immediately approached the goat and intended to lift its body to move it away from the hexagonal portal. But strangely, the goat's carcass couldn't move at all. Go Insung began to panic because the goat wouldn't move at all. One of the spectators speculated that perhaps the goat was pretending to be dead. But another suggested that the mountain goat was indeed very threatening. Go Insung was confused and asked why a goat could be a threat. The system then appeared and explained that since ancient times, the goat has been a symbol of Satan, the devil. One of the live streaming spectators told Go Insung that he heard the news that tomorrow is the 666th festival day. Go Insung didn't understand, so he asked his viewers to explain it understandably. Another spectator explained that it was just superstition, and in his opinion, Go Insung would still be in first place. Go Insung was relieved to hear that, so he asked his audience if there were any other issues. Suddenly, Go Insung realized that the goat had 6 teats. He found it strange because usually goats only have a maximum of 4 teats. The audience laughed at Go Insung and asked how this young man could know about such things. At dawn on the 6th day, Go Insung shouted with joy because he managed to save 7 deer. Go Insung immediately shouted to the system to open the hexagonal portal. Suddenly, the body of the goat above the hexagonal portal exploded. The system appeared and said that the main hexagonal portal of the devil had been activated. After that, the deer ran away in fear. The system showed a picture of a man and said that a level 3 dungeon operator named Chaser had entered the channel. The audience was amazed because they were also seeing the figure named Chaser for the first time. But some other viewers seemed pleased with Chaser's appearance. The Chaser operator immediately sent a message to Go Insung saying that he was responsible for Dungeons 1-8. Go Insung was surprised to hear about the operator, but he tried to remain calm and positive. Go Insung greeted the operator and asked if something was wrong. Go Insung also pleaded for his questions to be confirmed because he had just killed a very strange mad goat. The Chaser operator replied that they did indeed have a problem and needed time to figure it out because it was truly unexpected. Go Insung was confused because that meant he was really in a complicated situation. The operator asked Go Insung to wait for a moment. The audience started to get annoyed. One of the viewers said that he had never seen a problem like this before. Meanwhile, Go Insung began to panic if he lost now. After waiting for a while, the operator finally replied, saying that after the investigation, they had confirmed that the abnormal goat only appeared in Dungeons 1-8 out of the 30 prepared dungeons. Even the strange goat did not appear in the newly entered BJ Hubbard Dungeon 1-8. Go Insung was shocked to hear such a notification, but when he asked why only he experienced such a strange thing, suddenly the chat window disappeared. Go Insung was even more surprised as the deer began to scream. They stared at the blood clots in the carcass of the goat which suddenly, slowly rose again. Go Insung looked at the lump with a worried face. Finally, a strange monster with a goat's head and a very large human body appeared. With a fearful face, Go Insung tried to ask what creature it was. But every time he spoke, the words that came out of the creature were completely incomprehensible to Go Insung. Even the young man's body trembled so much that he couldn't move. He was truly terrified under the pressure aura of that terrifying creature. Go Insung could only breathe a sigh of relief when he saw, slowly, the large body of the monster being sucked into the hexagonal portal gate. Finally, the system appeared and announced that the hexagonal portal had been activated. Now, the portal could take Go Insung to Dungeon 1-9. Seeing this, Go Insung finally fell to his knees, gasping for breath. Meanwhile, in the Palace of Hell, a man knelt before the majestic figure on the throne. The man who was bowing said that the celebration was over and he apologized. The figure sitting on the throne turned out to be the King of Hell. He said that the problem could not be avoided, but finding the person behind all this is more important. The Demon King, who looked very modern, seemed upset to learn that Bahamut had risen. The Demon King immediately asked Gangnam, who was bowing before him, to bring the newly awakened Bahamut before him. Gangnam immediately left to fulfill his lord's wish. Now only the Demon King was cursing in his throne room. Finally, an old man appeared from a large mirror behind the king. The old man greeted the Demon King warmly. The king looked pleased to see the old man. The old man then asked if Bahamut had indeed risen. The old man heard this because there was a disturbance in Dungeon 1-8. The Demon King was confused and said he didn't know who did it. The old man said it might be because the Demon King's TV broadcast was operating in the dungeon. But the king denied having any rats in his underworld. The old man corrected himself and said that not many people were familiar with ancient resurrection rituals. Moreover, the Styx Underworld TV now controlled Zone 1, and because Zone 1 was previously managed by the Heavenly Gate TV of the Heavenly King and some leaders of Hell, the old man invited the leaders of Hell and 2 other leaders to hold an emergency meeting to address this issue. But the King of Hell said they didn't need to make a fuss because Bahamut had already been executed 666 years ago. The old man also said they needed to do something about the person who performed the ritual. The Demon King replied that it was unnecessary. He believed Go Insung was also a victim. But according to the old man, the incident was too embarrassing, so they had to send Go Insung to hell. The Demon King asked angrily if he had to do that just to keep Go Insung under control. Finally, the old man bid farewell sadly. Meanwhile, Go Insung had already moved to Dungeon 1-9. He was happy to be the first person to escape and thus entitled to receive a prize in the form of an F-rank class skill book. The system appeared and explained that there was an issue with the streaming due to a bug in the operation. You can now stream as usual because everything has been taken care of. Meanwhile, Go Insung began to inspect the room. While Go Insung was inspecting, a spectator said there was a hexagonal aspect of a large demon. Now the poisonous horned goat from yesterday won't have any trouble teleporting again. Others speculated that the goat was a behemoth demon, but they were puzzled because the behemoth should have been killed by some queens years ago. Now they believe that something is not right. Go Insung, who didn't understand what his audience was talking about, optimistically said, "I'll just do my job well because I don't know anything else." Go Insung stared at a fairly large well in the room. He thought the well looked ordinary, so he wanted to enter it later. The young man also looked up to estimate the height of the building, about 5 meters tall, slightly lower than the buildings in Dungeon 1-2. Go Insung saw a small door on the roof of the room, so he suspected he had to exit through that door. Go Insung bent his body, preparing himself. Then he increased his physical abilities and ran as hard as he could towards the cave wall. The young man tried to move as quickly as possible, climbing the smooth walls of the room. But before reaching the roof, he fell and landed safely again. The spectators speculated that Go Insung fell because he couldn't reach the top, but he explained that he just wanted to check the structure of the building earlier. Before acting again, Go Insung checked the gift book first. As before, the book disappeared immediately and entered his head. Go Insung immediately felt his head was very light like yesterday. Then he opened the shop and wanted to buy something. In the shop, there was only water, bread, and a portal detector. Go Insung was slightly surprised because there were only a few items in the shop, but he realized that everything would end easily once he found the hexagonal portal. So this bald young man immediately bought a portal detector that looked like a large magnifying glass. The portal detector immediately showed the direction of the hexagonal portal with a glowing arrow. But when Go Insung tried to follow the direction indicated by the arrow, the device quickly said that the hexagonal portal was not detected. Go Insung continued to rotate inside the room to find the actual location of the portal. Finally, he made an extreme decision to take off his jacket and jump into the deep well. When he was inside the well, he realized that the water pressure in the well was too strong for him to swim, and his body felt heavy. Go Insung decided to try to swim back up. But at that moment, a monster passed by. When Go Insung looked back, he was shocked to realize that there were hundreds of piranhas with very sharp teeth. Quickly, the piranhas approached Go Insung and began to bite his body. Go Insung panicked because the fish were biting very quickly on every part of his body. Feeling like he was going to die right there, suddenly Go Insung felt someone pulling his arm. It turned out to be Young Guai trying to help Go Insung rise to the surface. As a turtle, Young Guai was certainly great at swimming. With the help of the little turtle, Go Insung managed to reach the edge of the well and climbed out. Although his body was full of wounds, Go Insung still sincerely thanked Young Guai for the help. After that, Go Insung immediately put on his jacket and healed his wounded body. Go Insung thought that earlier he felt like the water had a great power and was pulling him very strongly. He concluded that the water could sense the presence of living creatures and pull them to the bottom of the water like zombies. Go Insung was going to experiment again. But before that, he would first increase his vitality by eating some bamboo dishes. Then Go Insung looked back into the well. Strangely, the water in the well immediately boiled and spurted upwards very strongly. Go Insung was happy because his guess was correct. The water could sense the presence of living creatures. But the water jets didn't stop and became stronger. Go Insung almost drowned in the water. Finally, when Go Insung was completely submerged in the water, the system appeared and announced that BJ Beauty successfully entered Dungeon 1-9. The girl immediately sent a message to Go Insung asking if he easily secured the first position again. Beauty started to get annoyed because, for a while, her messages had not been replied to by Go Insung. The bald young man clearly couldn't reply because he was busy holding his breath and trying to survive. Finally, Go Insung reached the surface with the help of Young Guai. Go Insung immediately grabbed the handle of the door on the roof and held it tightly. The beauty kept sending messages for Go Insung to reply because according to her, they had become closer during Dungeon 1-5. But Go Insung still couldn't reply because he was in a position that didn't allow him to let go. Go Insung just yelled in anger and hoped the girl would give him a little time. Go Insung held two handles at once. He shouted for joy when he finally managed to open the door. But strangely, even though he had pulled or pushed the door handle, the iron door still refused to open. The young man remembered one TV channel explaining that if someone sinks their car in a river or sea, they don't need to panic if the car door can't be opened. That's because water pressure makes it difficult to open the car door. From this, Go Insung realized that there must be even greater water pressure on the other side of the room. Go Insung got an idea and immediately took out a red gem to make young Gwai evolve. After the mystical turtle evolved, he was asked to fertilize more water, until finally, one room in Dungeon 1-9 was filled with water. Go Insung held his breath while trying to push the door again. Not long after, the iron door finally opened. Go Insung entered the other side of the room, which was also filled with water. He used the portal detector to find the location of the hexagonal portal. After finding it, he immediately swam up to the hexagonal portal and stood on it. Quickly, Go Insung was teleported into Dungeon 1-10. The system explained that once again, Go Insung successfully secured the first position as a participant who entered Dungeon 1-10. Therefore, Go Insung would be given the right to choose a rank F skill book for securing first place 7 times in a row. However, Go Insung found himself frozen in place. He was startled to realize that the terrain this time was the same as that in Dungeon 1-5, a labyrinth. But what lay above him now was the sun, not the moon, as a symbol of longevity. The system explained that this place was a dungeon containing treasures and monsters within it. The sun overhead could replenish vitality. Thus, the sun would be in the sky 24 hours a day. From the system, Go Insung learned that 10 people would participate together in this dungeon. The youth didn't know who would join later, whether they would be friends or foes. The system explained that the virtue votes had been added. Viewers who entered the channel were entitled to 1 vote per day in the dungeon, and all statistics increased by 0.01% per vote. Go Insung thought it best to quickly devise a way out of the dungeon. Go Insung touched the hologram screen in front of him with a happy smile because now he could choose his skills. Among the skills were healing touch, jumping, willingness to sacrifice, and physical shield. Go Insung was pleased to see many high-level skills. Finally, Go Insung chose a forward dash. This ability allowed the user to instantly cover a distance of 5 meters. Go Insung immediately activated this skill and was able to move quickly. After that, Go Insung opened the dungeon shop. In the shop, there were only treasure chest keys and a map. First, the youth chose to take the map. When he opened the map, he didn't expect it to be so different from what he had hoped. The youth was happy because the map wasn't as complicated as he had imagined. He saw that the monsters and treasure chests were in the same place. Go Insung immediately made a plan that first, he would find the location of the treasure chest, then open the chest with the key he bought from the shop. Then, the youth would collect all the treasures he obtained and find a way out. That was roughly the plan he would execute. Go Insung already knew the location and thought that he couldn't possibly get lost. The youth chose the path he deemed fastest to the elephant symbol. With just a few steps, Go Insung had already reached the location with the large elephant symbol. He immediately entered the door near the elephant symbol and began to descend into the underground space. Quickly, the youth reached the ground floor and saw a treasure chest right in the middle of the room. Go Insung immediately cheered as he approached the treasure chest. He thought everything was too easy until he saw a larger elephant monster emerge from the darkness. The audience laughed at the youth who had thought everything was too easy. Nothing was easy in that place, especially since the elephant monster had 3 trunks with large, sharp-ended maces. Go Insung protested because he had to fight such a huge monster. The elephant immediately lifted its front legs to attack Go Insung. But fortunately, the youth managed to dodge in time. Go Insung used the forward dash skill to evade the monster, then ran very quickly to attack the elephant monster from behind. Go Insung successfully stabbed the large elephant's body from below with just 1 attack. With that single strike, the elephant monster died on the spot. Go Insung received several votes from his audience for his remarkable abilities. Because of his ranking, Go Insung successfully obtained unlimited inventory. The youth was very happy. Go Insung immediately opened the treasure chest with the key he had bought from the shop. From inside the chest, Go Insung obtained a hexagonal portal detector. But suddenly, the youth felt a very strong killing energy. Go Insung turned around and saw a monster elephant even larger than before. This monster elephant even had 5 terrifying trunks. Go Insung raised his focus level. Then, he added strength to his weapon, but suddenly, the youth turned around and ran towards the exit door. Go Insung did manage to reach the exit door quickly, but unfortunately, the door simply wouldn't open. The bald youth panicked. But fortunately, the elephant monster couldn't chase him and climbed the stairs. But suddenly, the system appeared and informed Insung that he could only leave after he killed the remaining elephant monster. The youth was afraid to face the elephant monster, but he strengthened his heart by saying that he was the one who successfully killed the big ghost. So Insung immediately ran quickly while raising his weapon to attack the elephant monsters. The monster raised its 5 trunks to attack Insung directly. Fortunately, the youth managed to dodge with a forward dash. Insung would try to kill the elephant monster from below as before. Would he succeed this time? Insung was indeed fast, but strangely, the elephant could evade his attacks by raising its 2 front legs faster. Insung was surprised that an elephant could move so fast. Suddenly, one of the elephant's sharp trunks hit Insung's body. The youth was thrown quite far. As he rose again, Insung realized that his ribs were almost broken. The huge female elephant approached her partner's body and immediately became angry upon seeing her partner's body covered in blood. The monster's eyes immediately turned angry, indicating that it had entered a rampage mode. Quickly, the elephant ran towards Insung. The bald youth immediately ran to save himself. Insung's injured body was not able to fight the monster. The youth was very overwhelmed to run. Finally, he used the forward dash skill to quickly reach the high stairs leading to the exit. As Insung lay down, taking a breath on the stairs, he noticed a glass window above the exit door. However, when the young man tried to smash the window with a spear, he was met with disappointment. The window was too hard and couldn't be easily broken. Insung glanced at the elephant monster beneath the stairs and realized that he couldn't leave the place without killing the monster. At that moment, the system suddenly notified that BJ Hubbard had successfully entered Dungeon 1-10. Now, only 8 people remained who could enter the dungeon. Meanwhile, at the entrance, BJ Hubbard smiled as he gazed at the warm sun. The pleasant atmosphere made him want to compose poetry. He continued walking until he passed a large pig symbol in the middle of the road, paying no heed to the map. BJ Hubbard was busy enjoying the natural scenery around him until a large wild boar appeared right in his path. Nevertheless, BJ Hubbard remained calm and even thought of giving a unique name to the large wild boar. As the wild boar approached, BJ Hubbard took out a large shield from his inventory, known to be owned by the goddess of truth, which looked magnificent. The wild boar attacked, but BJ Hubbard managed to fend off the attack with his large shield. The wild boar kept trying to push BJ Hubbard, but he confidently stated that the wild boar couldn't possibly kill him with its current level. At this moment, more wild boar monsters appeared and attacked BJ Hubbard. Seeing 2 monsters, the strange man became even more excited instead of afraid. He pushed his shield with all his might, causing the 2 wild boar monsters to stagger backward. At that moment, the system notified that BJ Leo had also entered the dungeon. However, BJ Hubbard couldn't celebrate because he had to immediately fight the rampaging wild boar monsters. One wild boar monster attacked him from behind. BJ Hubbard tried hard to push back the monsters, but another wild boar monster attacked from behind. Fortunately, BJ Hubbard managed to fend them off by hitting them hard. But as BJ Hubbard focused on one wild boar monster, the others returned to attack. BJ Hubbard panicked as he couldn't possibly fight against the monsters pressing him from both front and back. Eventually, one of the wild boar monsters was killed by several arrows at once. It turned out that the one who killed another wild boar monster was a woman wearing Indian attire, complete with a large bow. The girl cheered like an Indian when she successfully killed a wild boar monster with a single attack. BJ Hubbard immediately asked if the girl was Leo's disciple. She confirmed and asked if the person in front of her was BJ Hubbard. With a wide smile, BJ Hubbard confirmed it. Suddenly, the ground between them trembled and a treasure chest emerged. They both looked visibly pleased to receive the reward. Meanwhile, Insung was still trapped in the underground room with the mammoth monster. Insung attempted to attack the monster on its back, thinking it might be the weak point, but it yielded no results. Instead, the mammoth monster became angrier. Insung then ran towards the monster's head, intending to target its presumably fragile eyes. Insung jumped onto the monster's head, apologizing as he planned to send the monster to hell. In the end, Insung was struck by the sharp trunk of the monster. His body was thrown like a leaf falling from a tree. Insung sustained more injuries and found himself pressed by the mammoth monster once again. Meanwhile, BJ Hubbard and Leo were fighting over the treasure chest. Both believed they deserved it. In the end, BJ Hubbard opened the treasure chest and took out a hexagonal portal locator magnifying glass. BJ Hubbard wondered where he should use the tool now. Suddenly, Leo swiftly snatched the magnifying glass, claiming it as hers. BJ Hubbard tried to chase after her, but she moved too quickly until she disappeared into the confusing labyrinth. BJ Hubbard could only stand there, stating that he would teach her ethics when they met again. Insung was increasingly pressed. He narrowly avoided being stepped on by the large mammoth's foot. Fortunately, he managed to escape the deadly attack. Then, he moved quickly to find an opening and attacked the monster's belly from the side. However, he was struck again by the mammoth's trunk. Insung decided to take a short rest at the entrance stairs. He thought that he had seen an opening earlier that allowed him to attack. However, he couldn't continuously use the forward dash skill due to his weakening body condition. But he concluded that the bottom part of the monster must be its weak point because the monster panicked when Insung tried to attack it. Insung descended the stairs calmly, confident that he could kill the mammoth monster this time. As they faced each other, Insung immediately increased his focus power. He dodged in time when the mammoth's trunk attacked him again. Insung started counting each sequence of the mammoth's trunk attacks while continuously dodging. After the 5 trunks attacked separately, the 5 trunks of the mammoth monster began to rotate randomly to block Insung's attack. However, at that moment, Insung saw an opportunity and used a forward dash to run lightning fast under the mammoth monster. Then, Insung focused his weapon power and superpower to deliver a deadly blow to the bottom of the monster. This time, Insung's attack didn't miss. He successfully delivered a fatal blow, causing the large monster to vomit blood and fall. The system appeared and notified that the giant mammoth monster had been defeated. Insung was awarded 1,000 votes as a prize. Additionally, he absorbed the mammoth's soul stone. Some of his agility had also been increased to defeat the monster. Insung was still struggling hard to get out from under the large body of the mammoth monster. The young man also complained because he had to endure the monster's filth. Earlier, Insung had also been hit in the rectum by the monster. Eventually, Insung managed to push part of its body off of him. He immediately increased his muscle strength to push the monster's body off him. Insung exerted all his strength to push the monster's body, but in the end, the young man's hip bone almost broke from trying too hard. Insung finally surrendered. He didn't know how to remove the monster's large body. However, he didn't want to die there either. Finally, he heard the sound of a door opening, and someone at the door asked if there was anyone in the room. Insung immediately shouted that he was the owner of the name Please Save Me, and he truly begged for help to be saved from the monster's large body. BJ Hubbard came down and said that he would give 10 points to Insung for coming to class earlier than himself. Insung truly begged for help, but BJ Hubbard instead said some silly things that only made Insung angrier. BJ Hubbard asked why Insung was covered in mud and smelled like that now. Insung refused to answer and asked BJ Hubbard to help him out first. Finally, BJ Hubbard lifted the mammoth's large body with his muscular arms. BJ Hubbard looked like he was trying hard to lift the monster's body alone. Insung could see that BJ Hubbard was very strong. After the monster's body was lifted slightly, Insung immediately ran out from under its body. Insung immediately thanked BJ Hubbard for his help. Meanwhile, BJ Hubbard smiled happily because he had successfully obtained the mammoth's tail. Suddenly, Insung realized something strange about Mr. Hubart's hat and asked, why was the writing on the hat Hubart and not Hubart? Suddenly, Mr. Hubart's expression changed. He looked very angry when he asked back, what did Insung mean by asking that? BJ Hubbard turned away from Insung. However, the bald youth continued to try to call out to him. Insung was worried that BJ Hubbard would be angry with him. Suddenly, BJ Hubbard turned around and laughed loudly. He found Insung very amusing and foolish. According to him, Hubert is English. He thought Insung was a true student who was not ashamed to ask to dispel ignorance. Insung immediately became very excited when he saw the amazing shield of the goddess of truth. Mr. Hubbard, on the other hand, said that speaking the truth is the motto of his school. Insung still wanted to see or ask about the shield of truth, but it seemed difficult to talk to Mr. Hubbard. So, Insung abandoned his intention to find out more. Mr. Hubbard reminded Insung to clean himself up because the smell of mammoth dung was very disgusting. Insung apologized. He had completely forgotten. So the young man immediately took off all his clothes, turned off the live streaming, and took out the young girl. When Insung finally took off all his clothes, Mr. Hubbard screamed, feeling that his eyes had been tainted. Seeing Mr. Hubbard's response, Insung felt uncomfortable and said he didn't know where to take a bath or how to do it. Mr. Hubbard finally said that when he was Insung's age, he also had no shame, so the young man could bathe anytime without bothering him. Finally, Insung bathed with the help of a young man on the other side of the room. Insung immediately felt refreshed after bathing. Mr. Hubbard praised the extraordinary abilities of young guy. One day, Mr. Hubbard wanted to ask for help from that mystical creature. Suddenly, Leo appeared at the entrance. She screamed asking who was in the room. Mr. Hubbard introduced Leo to Insung. Then Mr. Hubbard asked if Leo had finished using the magnifying glass earlier. But Leo ignored Mr. Hubbard's question. Instead, the girl was busy greeting the young girl who was still sitting on Insung's shoulder. Leo said she had heard a lot about young Guai and the old bald man in front of her. Insung was shocked to be called an old bald man, so he said he used to have hair. Annoyed at being ignored by Leo, Mr. Hubbard said the girl needed an etiquette education. Leo smiled seeing Mr. Hubbard still angry, so Leo took out her magnifying glass and said she was just joking and would return the item to Mr. Hubbard. but Mr. Hubbard told the girl to keep it as they would continue the journey together. Leo immediately became excited when she heard they would continue the journey as a team of 3. Mr. Hubbard said they had to travel together to avoid unforeseen dangers. That's also because they both were Mr. Hubbard's students. But Go-in-sung remained silent. This young man still seemed hesitant. Go-in-sung thought it was too dangerous to travel together. He believed that anyone could quickly escape after getting the item they wanted. But in the end, this young man just went along with the flow and left with the other two. Go-in-sung opened the map and asked if they should start by hunting for the nearest treasure first. At that time, there was another person who managed to enter Dungeon 1-10. That person had the nickname Doghead. Mr. Hubbard wanted to send a message to that person to join their group, but Go-in-sung prevented it and said it would be better if he sent a message to Doghead. Go-in-sung was worried that the person would immediately flee after receiving the message about accepting new students. Go-in-sung immediately sent a message to that person to join their group, which already consisted of 3 people. But strangely, the person did not respond to Go-in-sung's message at all. This young man told the others that Doghead did not reply to his message and ignored it. Mr. Hubbard said to let the person be because maybe they wanted to move alone. After all, everyone works differently. They arrived at a street marked with the symbol of a large cat. Without hesitation, the 3 of them entered the door leading to the underground chamber. This time, inside the room, they beheld the sight of a lush and beautiful forest. Mr. Hubbard explained that the place was a dungeon within a dungeon. They remained vigilant as they did not spot any monster presence. The system explained that Smiloten monsters would soon appear, and they couldn't leave the place until they defeated these monsters. Suddenly, a fairly large monster emerged from the bushes and lunged at Leo. Fortunately, Go-in-sung's response was swift. He immediately threw his spear, hitting the monster's abdomen accurately. Leo added to the attack by shooting arrows at the monster's legs. Angered by the continuous assault, the monster leaped to attack Go-in-sung. Fortunately, the young man managed to evade in time. Then Mr. Hubbard stepped forward, attacking the monster with his large shield, stating that it was the true power of the Great Hubbard. With their combined efforts, they swiftly defeated the monster. Go-in-sung smiled, realizing that teamwork indeed made everything easier, especially since both of them possessed remarkable abilities. They began to collect parts of the monster's body. The system appeared, announcing that they were all entitled to receive 1,000 votes as a reward. Go-in-sung noticed that the leopard had 6 front claws and 4 back claws. The young man wondered if there was a hidden meaning behind this. Suddenly, Mr. Hubbard shouted as he found a rather long gift box. They both approached to see what was inside the box. Upon opening it, they found a large and beautiful arrow. The system explained that the arrow could only be used once to shoot down the moon or the sun. Go-in-sung examined the arrow carefully, pondering whether they should shoot down the sun in this game. Go-in-sung handed the bow to Leo, saying, "I think this arrow will suit you, Leo, as you're the bow user, and soon they'll find your celestial bow." Leo was very grateful for the gift of the arrow. He then asked Go-in-sung not to be so formal as he was much easier going than Go-in-sung. Hearing this, Go-in-sung agreed in response. At that moment, the system suddenly appeared, announcing that Beauty had successfully entered Dungeon 1-10. Go-in-sung smiled happily upon hearing it. He asked Mr. Hubbard and Leo if they minded inviting Beauty to join their team. Before this, Go-in-sung had already completed Dungeon 1-5 with the girl. The other 2 team members didn't mind having an additional member join them. Go-in-sung immediately sent a message to the girl, saying that Beauty was very late this time, worrying that she might have died. But with a frustrated tone, Beauty replied that she regretted caring about that person. Go-in-sung was astonished to read such a message. He worried that Beauty might not want to join their team. Ultimately, Beauty approached and joined Go-in-sung's team. Upon meeting, Go-in-sung introduced Mr. Hubbard and Leo to Beauty. Politely, the girl bowed and introduced herself as Beauty. Go-in-sung asked her why she responded to his message so rudely. He had been afraid that Beauty wouldn't want to join them. Beauty explained that someone with the nickname Doghead had been bothering her and forcing her to join them. Go-in-sung now understood that the girl had mistaken that person for Doghead. Beauty was very angry, thinking that the guy claimed to have more balloons than her. Leo then revealed that he also received a message from Doghead. Mr. Hubbard had also received a message from that person but only read it without responding. Go-in-sung, feeling surprised, realized that the person seemed to be trying to plot behind the back of the number 1 figure, which was himself. The person with the nickname Doghead was trying to convince some other players that he could pay them because he had many balloons. Doghead promised to let them all pass quickly as long as they helped him become the champion. A middle-aged man in a suit asked if that meant Doghead was instructing them to step aside after defeating the monster and let the man kill it. The Doghead confirmed this and explained that he would pay them more if they helped well. A samurai man said that Doghead had already given them plenty of balloons, so were there any left? Doghead smiled proudly and said that they didn't need to worry about balloons because he had an ocean of wealth that never dried up. And he also had a large seaweed behind him. Suddenly, the system appeared, announcing that a participant with the nickname Permanent had finally entered Dungeon 1-10. Impatiently, Beauty asked Go Insung to send a message to the newcomer in the dungeon to join their group immediately. But unfortunately, the young man couldn't respond because they were all busy fighting a leopard monster. Beauty was annoyed and eventually joined the three of them to defeat the monster. Not long after, they successfully defeated the monster. Beauty then told Go Insung that another person had entered the dungeon. So, the young man had to quickly send a message to him, or he would be asked to join the Doghead group. The system reappeared and informed that someone had successfully entered Dungeon 1-10 again. Now, 10 players have successfully entered. Beauty immediately sent a message to that person, saying that this could not be postponed any longer. I had to contact that person before the Doghead contacted them. But suddenly, the system appeared, indicating that they were currently experiencing a very serious problem. Dungeon 1-10 would lose its original concept, and the dungeon would collapse because an unknown force had attacked the system. However, the escape from the dungeon would continue to run in safe mode backup if there were any unforeseen dangers. Beauty was very upset to hear this because it meant that their hard work so far had been in vain. The system explained again that all rankings would be reset, and this trial would be replaced with a running competition. Suddenly, the ground beneath the feet of all participants trembled violently. The initially flat ground slowly rose, forming a winding and long path. The system explained that everyone had to start at the same starting line, and they had to reach the finish line to escape from the dungeon. Everyone in the Doghead group cursed angrily upon hearing the notification. Meanwhile, in the Go Insung group, everyone looked worried. They wondered if they had to run in such a dangerous terrain. The arena where they were running now was tens of kilometers high from the surface. If anyone pushed them and they fell, they would surely die instantly. Once again, the system announced that all participants would be moved to the starting line. Thus, all participants immediately felt a strange energy, and they were teleported to the starting line. Finally, the two groups met. The man with the nickname Doghead immediately greeted Go Insung, recognizing this person as "Please save me." Go Insung replied to him, saying that "I don't know who that person is." In his heart, Go Insung now understood why the person in front of him had the nickname Doghead. Because his face did look like a dog. Go Insung looked at everyone in the Doghead group and thought they looked like a cosplay group. You could recognize them in an instant. The figure of the thin mustached man wearing a neat suit turned out to be named as Yura. Then the man in ancient clothes and a samurai was Moonlight Swordsman, while the big-bodied man, but with a small face, was named Little Buddy. Beauty tried to call Master Huan, a short old man, to join their team. But after carefully looking at both teams, Master Huan immediately chose to stand by the Doghead's side. Seeing one more person joining their group, Doghead immediately smiled and proudly said that their group was the best. Seeing that, Beauty immediately cursed and scolded Master Huan very harshly. This girl no longer cared about her gentle image. The system appeared according to the map in everyone's inventory. They were only allowed to run along the track. Anyone who failed to run for 60 minutes would be declared a loser. The previous rankings would not be completely reset, and the first place would still be given a special prize. Namely, a special prize from Dungeon 1-10. Go Insung immediately received the highest leap prize because he was the one occupying the first position so far. The highest leap skill allowed Go Insung to jump up quickly. The maximum height of his jump was 10 meters. The system also explained that there were no additional rules besides running along the designated track. Upon hearing that, Doghead wondered if that meant they could escape from this place by any means, while Go Insung thought that this competition would surely be a fierce battle. But they both thought that whatever happened later didn't matter because they would strive to occupy the first position. Before starting this running competition, the system warned that a false start would result in immediate disqualification. Therefore, everyone was asked to line up. Upon hearing that, everyone immediately lined up in their positions. Slowly the countdown began from 3. Go Insung immediately increased his focus, muscle power, and others while preparing to run. As soon as the countdown finished, Doghead immediately turned around and intended to hit Go Insung. But the bald youth avoided it with an evasive attitude because he had already suspected Doghead's attitude. With sharp eyes full of anger, Go Insung told Doghead that each of them had a well-thought-out plan, until Doghead appeared to block them. So Go Insung immediately punched the annoying face of Dog's head. The force of Go Insung's punch was so strong that it sent the blonde-haired man flying quite far. Then, all the members of the Go Insung team quickly ran away from the starting line. Beauty still had time to taunt Doghead by saying that the punch must have been very painful. Doghead lay there with a battered face. What was most heartbreaking was that all his team members walked away, leaving me lying there injured and alone. They decided not to make this a fight between two groups, but in the end, they ran too when they remembered that if they became the last ones, they wouldn't be able to escape from there. Ultimately, Doghead was left alone. Doghead got up and cursed angrily, realizing that all his team members had run away, then turned to the purple snake beside him and asked it to bite him. Meanwhile, the Go Insung group continued to run enthusiastically, but they were puzzled to see a large hole in the ground. Their question was finally answered when a large rock spun towards them. Everyone was shocked to see such a huge rock blocking their path. Now they knew that the excavation under their feet was to move the big rock. They all panicked because it seemed impossible to escape from such a huge rock. They were afraid they would die right there. But then, Go Insung asked them all to hold on to him tightly. In a very short time, they tried to trust Go Insung and held on to him tightly. As the big rock got closer to them all, Go Insung activated the highest leap skill to make a very high jump, allowing them all to escape from the big rock. Everyone was very grateful to Go Insung for saving them and finding a solution in a very short time. The rock continued to spin throughout the track until finally, the Doghead group had to face the big rock. Everyone panicked and tried to retreat when they saw the very large rock blocking their path. But on the other side of the path, someone was running quickly towards them. It turned out to be Doghead, who now had a terrifying monster appearance with 4 arms and a purple color. This was the side effect he got from being bitten by the purple snake earlier. The only woman in the group was very scared when she saw Doghead. She screamed, saying that the figure in front of her was a monster. But Doghead tried not to pay attention to the woman and immediately jumped to stop the big rock with his 4 arms. Despite having greatly increased strength from the snake, Doghead still struggled to stop the big rock. Until finally, he diverted the course of the big rock and it spun toward the woman. Unfortunately, not a single man in the group was willing to help her, so the girl died crushed by the rock. At that moment, Doghead said the girl couldn't accept help from a man she called a monster. Doghead then turned to all his team members and asked if he hadn't asked them to help him. So the monster-shaped man asked all his members to work hard together in the future. Finally, they all bowed to Doghead and promised to obey. Meanwhile, Go Insung and his group continued to run tirelessly through the arena. Beauty asked if the Doghead group died because they were crushed by the rock. Leo replied that if so, could they reduce their running speed? Go Insung answered that it was better for them to keep their distance from the Doghead group. Mr. Hubbard agreed with Go Insung's words. Now they had to face a very large stone wall. They all tried hard to climb the stone wall. But after the stone wall was passed, they faced another problem. In front of them now, there were several very large golem monsters blocking the track. The golem monsters opened their mouths and shot fire stones towards them all. Quickly, Beauty took her sword to slash all the stones thrown towards them. She looked very agile and skilled in using her sword. Meanwhile, Go Insung used his strong spear to throw stones out of the arena. Leo also tried to get rid of the stones coming towards him with arrows. But wooden arrows were unable to move hard stones. Leo looked scared when a firestone headed towards him.